close your eyes and imagine the vast ocean that covers most of our planet. Beneath those gentle waves lie countless mysteries that even today's scientists cannot solve. Each unexplained wonder holds secrets waiting to be discovered. We've mapped Mars down to rocks the size of basketballs. We know where every crater sits on the moon. Yet right here on Earth, we've explored less than 5% of our own oceans. Think about that for a second. We live on a planet that's 71% water, and we're basically strangers to our own backyard. The numbers get even weirder when you dig deeper. NASA's budget dwarfs ocean exploration funding by roughly 20 to 1. We've sent more people to space than to the deepest parts of our ocean. The Mariana Trench has been visited by exactly 3 people in history, while over 500 have been to space. But here's what really gets me thinking late at night. Ancient civilizations somehow knew things about the ocean that we've completely lost. Polynesian navigators could read wave patterns bouncing off islands they couldn't even see yet. They navigated thousands of miles of open ocean using techniques we still don't fully understand. Vikings crossed the Atlantic using ocean knowledge that modern sailors struggled to replicate. The ocean keeps its secrets like a vast underwater library, storing information in currents, temperatures, and depths we're only beginning to decode. Every deep-sea expedition returns with more questions than answers. And speaking of questions, the deepest parts of our ocean hide life that shouldn't even be possible. 7 miles down in the Mariana Trench, where the pressure would crush a human body in milliseconds, something impossible is happening. Life isn't just surviving, it's thriving. We're talking about pressure that's over 1,000 times what you experience at sea level. Your bones would literally turn to powder. Yet down there, bizarre creatures are having what looks like a pool party. Take the xenophyophores, single-celled organisms the size of dinner plates. Single cells. That's like finding a basketball-sized amoeba. They shouldn't exist according to everything we know about cellular biology, but there they are, casually defying physics while building elaborate homes from ocean sediment. But here's where things get really weird. Researchers keep recording sounds from the deepest parts that don't match any known species. These aren't random noises. They're structured, almost like communication patterns. What exactly is talking down there in Earth's most hostile environment? Then there's the light problem. No sunlight has reached these depths for millions of years, yet entire ecosystems flourish. These creatures have figured out how to build complex food webs, starting with nothing. Well, not nothing. They're using chemicals from volcanic vents like tiny underwater chefs. The strangest part? Some of these deep-sea species seem frozen in evolutionary time, as if they found the perfect formula and decided to stop changing altogether. Speaking of things that shouldn't exist where they do, our planet has an even stranger phenomenon happening above the surface. Picture an island, marked clearly on every navigation chart, complete with detailed coastlines and elevation data. Sailors set course for this supposedly solid piece of land, only to find nothing but empty ocean where terra firma should exist. Welcome to the bizarre world of Phantom Islands. The most famous case? Sandy Island, which appeared on Google Earth and countless maps near New Caledonia for over a decade. This wasn't some ancient cartographer's mistake. Modern GPS coordinates, satellite imagery, the works. When researchers finally sailed to the exact location in 2012, they found ocean depths of 4,900 feet. No island, no shallow water, nothing. But here's where it gets weird. Some phantom islands actually show up on satellite photos before vanishing completely. The images look legitimate, showing what appears to be land masses with beaches, vegetation, even shadows cast by hills. Yet when ships arrive, there's absolutely nothing there. The psychological angle makes things even stranger. Experienced navigators report a phenomenon called island fever, where crews become convinced they can see land that doesn't exist. The human brain apparently creates these mirages so convincingly that entire ship's crews will swear they spotted an island. Even more unsettling, modern GPS systems occasionally still display non-existent islands, suggesting our most advanced technology can somehow be fooled by these oceanic phantoms. Speaking of the ocean's ability to fool our senses, wait until you hear how marine animals have created their own version of the internet. Deep beneath the waves, whales are running the world's oldest internet. And it's faster than anything humans ever built. When a humpback whale sings off the coast of Alaska, another whale near Hawaii hears it instantly, not in minutes or hours, immediately. We're talking about communication across 3,000 miles of open ocean happening in real time. The ocean has these invisible highways called SOFAR channels, sound fixing and ranging channels, if you want the fancy name. These underwater sound tunnels can carry a whale's message clear across the Pacific without losing strength. It's like nature built fiber optic cables out of water. But here's where things get really wild. Marine biologists have tracked sea turtles that somehow know exactly when their cousins on the other side of the world start migrating. Dolphins, in completely separate pods, suddenly change course at the exact same moment. Fish schools coordinate feeding patterns across continents. How? Nobody knows. The ocean seems to have its own version of social media. Whales post status updates. Dolphins share memes. Sea turtles check in at their favorite restaurants. All through sound waves, we're just beginning to understand. Some researchers think the entire ocean floor acts like one massive speaker system. Every thermal vent, every underwater mountain, every current creates its own frequency. Together, they form a communication network that makes our internet look like two tin cans connected by string. What messages are they sharing down there? Speaking of mysterious ocean communications, wait until you hear about the light shows happening in complete darkness. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, something extraordinary is happening. Massive displays of light are pulsing across underwater landscapes like alien cities celebrating some cosmic holiday. We're talking about bioluminescent phenomena so vast they can be spotted from space satellites, and nobody can explain what's causing them. Picture this. You're an astronaut looking down at Earth, and suddenly you notice entire sections of ocean glowing like underwater Las Vegas. These aren't tiny sparkles from microscopic plankton. These are coordinated light shows spanning hundreds of square miles, pulsing in synchronized patterns that would make any nightclub jealous. The phenomenon gets even stranger when you dive deeper. Marine biologists have discovered that deep-sea creatures are creating what can only be described as underwater concerts. Jellyfish, squid, and fish species that have never been observed working together are suddenly putting on coordinated light performances. It's like they're following some mysterious script we can't read. But here's where things get really wild. These creatures are creating light patterns that serve no obvious biological purpose. Mating displays? Nope. Hunting strategies? Doesn't match. Territory marking? Wrong again. They're making art down there. And frankly, it's better than most human light shows. The most puzzling part is how they coordinate across such vast distances. Individual creatures, separated by miles, somehow sync their flashing perfectly. It's like they're all plugged into the same underwater internet, downloading the same choreography. Then there's the Milky Seas phenomenon that'll keep you awake wondering. Sailors have reported this for centuries, but satellites now confirm it's real. Entire ocean regions suddenly glow with an eerie blue-white light that can stretch across areas larger than Connecticut. The water looks like someone dumped glow-in-the-dark paint across the surface, creating an ethereal landscape that belongs more in a fantasy novel than our actual planet. But why do these underwater cities of light even exist? The Great Pacific Garbage Patch sounds like an environmental disaster, and it is. But here's what nobody expected. It's also become one of the most innovative ecosystems on Earth. Scientists discovered something mind-blowing when they started studying this floating trash heap. New species are evolving specifically to live on plastic waste, not just surviving on it, thriving on it. We're talking about bacteria that literally eat plastic bottles for breakfast, and sea anemones that treat shopping bags like luxury real estate. A researcher named Dr. Julia Reiser found over 100 different species living in the garbage patch that had never been documented anywhere else. These creatures aren't just making do with what they've got. They're becoming specialists. Some have developed enzymes that break down specific types of plastic. Others use bottle caps as perfect nesting spots. The weirdest part? Some of these adaptations are happening faster than evolution should allow. We're seeing genetic changes in just decades that normally take thousands of years. It's like the ocean hit fast forward on natural selection. Hermit crabs now prefer plastic containers over natural shells. They've figured out that yogurt cups last longer and come in better colors. Honestly, who can argue with that logic? But this rapid evolution raises a chilling question. What happens when these plastic-dependent creatures encounter something even stranger living in our ocean depths? Picture perfect circles carved into sand, thousands of feet below the ocean's surface. No human has ever been down there with construction equipment. Yet there they are, geometric masterpieces that would make any artist jealous. Japanese researchers discovered something incredible when they followed a tiny pufferfish near the coast. This little guy, barely 6 inches long, was creating elaborate circular patterns in the sand that stretched 7 feet across. Intricate radial designs with ridged walls and detailed decorative shells placed with mathematical precision. But here's what blows my mind. These fish work for weeks, sometimes a whole month, sculpting these underwater mandalas. They use their fins like tiny bulldozers, moving thousands of sand particles into perfect formations. The precision rivals anything humans could create with sophisticated tools. The really weird part? We still don't know why they do it. Some researchers think it's for mating, but males create these artworks even when no females are around. Others appear overnight in completely different ocean locations worldwide, far from any known pufferfish populations. Satellite imagery has captured massive circular formations on seafloors from Japan to the Mediterranean. Perfect geometry where chaos should rule. Some measure hundreds of feet across, way too big for any known marine creature to create. What's even stranger is how these patterns seem to follow mathematical sequences that appear throughout nature. Golden ratios, Fibonacci spirals, fractal geometry, almost like the ocean floor is trying to teach us something about universal design principles. Then, there's the timing mystery that'll keep you wondering all night. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, time itself seems to play by different rules. While surface dwellers age according to Earth's rhythms, creatures in the abyss appear to exist in their own temporal bubble. Take the Greenland shark. These massive predators live for over 400 years, moving through Arctic waters like living time capsules. But here's what's truly bizarre. Their metabolism runs so slowly that they barely seem to age at all. One shark caught recently was estimated to be born before Shakespeare wrote his first play. Then there's the phenomenon of ancient water masses. Deep in the Pacific, researchers have discovered pockets of water that haven't seen sunlight for over 1,000 years. These liquid time capsules carry dissolved minerals and gases from medieval times, trapped in oceanic circulation patterns that move slower than continental drift. The really mind-bending part? Living fossils like coelacanths and nautiluses inhabit these time-dilated environments. They've remained virtually unchanged for millions of years, as if evolution hit the pause button in certain ocean depths. Some researchers theorize that extreme pressure and cold create environments where biological processes slow to a crawl. Others suggest these creatures have unlocked secrets of longevity that we're only beginning to understand. But the ocean's strangest temporal mysteries might not involve slow time at all. Sometimes, the sea seems to defy physics in ways that make even seasoned researchers question their instruments. Picture a perfectly calm day at sea. No storms in sight. Weather reports showing gentle conditions. Then suddenly, a wall of water 100 feet tall appears out of nowhere and smashes into a ship. These are rogue waves, and they've been terrifying sailors for centuries. The problem? According to our best ocean models, they shouldn't exist. Traditional wave physics tells us that waves build gradually. Storm systems create energy that transfers through water over time and distance. But rogue waves break every rule we thought we understood about how water behaves. Take the Dropner wave, recorded off Norway in 1995. This monster measured 84 feet high in seas, where the average wave was only 20 feet. That's like finding a skyscraper in a neighborhood of single-story houses. What makes this even weirder? Satellite data now shows these impossible waves happening regularly. The European Space Agency discovered that rogue waves occur far more often than our mathematics predicted. We're talking about waves that our computers say have a 1 in 10,000 year chance of forming, yet they show up multiple times per year. Some theories involve wave interference patterns, or something called nonlinear wave dynamics. Fancy words that basically mean we're still guessing. Ships report waves shaped like walls, pyramids, or even holes in the ocean. Each formation challenges what we know about fluid mechanics. But here's what really keeps oceanographers awake at night. If our wave models are this wrong, what other ocean forces are we completely misunderstanding? Your compass starts spinning like a broken carnival ride. The GPS throws up its hands in digital defeat. Welcome to one of the ocean's most baffling phenomena: magnetic anomalies that turn navigation equipment into expensive paperweights. These aren't just minor hiccups either. Ships have reported their compasses pointing in completely wrong directions, sometimes rotating continuously, like they're searching for magnetic north on another planet. The Mediterranean has spots where magnetic readings flip between normal and absolutely bonkers within just a few miles. But here's what really messes with your head. Sea turtles navigate thousands of miles using Earth's magnetic field as their personal highway system. They're basically living GPS units with flippers. Yet somehow, they cruise right through these magnetic chaos zones without missing a beat. How do they do it? We have no clue. Scientists have found magnetic dead zones, where compasses become as useful as chocolate teapots. These areas shift and move like invisible storms, appearing in different locations without warning. Some last for days, others vanish within hours. Then there's the strandings. Whales and dolphins beach themselves in massive groups, often near these magnetic anomalies. Coincidence? The jury's still out, but the timing is suspiciously perfect. What's creating these magnetic mysteries remains one of the ocean's best-kept secrets. But speaking of secrets hidden beneath the waves, picture this. You're exploring the ocean floor when you stumble across what looks like ancient stone steps. Not random rocks. Actual carved stairs descending into the abyss. These aren't myths anymore. Divers keep finding perfectly carved structures thousands of feet underwater. Walls, roads, buildings that would make ancient architects weep with envy. The Yonaguni Monument off Japan? It's got right angles sharper than your math teacher's attitude. Terraces that look like they were designed by someone who really knew what they were doing. But here's where your brain starts hurting. These structures are deeper than any known civilization could have built them. We're talking about places that went underwater when humans were supposedly still figuring out fire. Take the structures off Cuba. Sonar revealed an entire city layout at depths that would have been dry land 40,000 years ago. 40,000. That's way before we supposedly invented agriculture, let alone underwater construction. The Mediterranean keeps coughing up similar surprises. Perfectly fitted stone blocks arranged in patterns that scream intelligent design. Not the geological kind either. Some of these formations show tool marks, evidence of planning, sophisticated engineering that shouldn't exist. Then there's the age problem. How do you get buildings underwater that are older than recorded human history? Either our timeline is completely wrong, or someone else was building cities while we were still living in caves. But depth isn't the only mystery these ruins create. Something massive is moving through our oceans right now, and we have absolutely no idea what it is. Sonar operators call them fast walkers, contacts that appear on screens, move at impossible speeds, then vanish without a trace. These aren't whales or submarines. They're something else entirely. The famous bloop, sound from 1997, got everyone excited about giant sea monsters. Turned out to be ice cracking in Antarctica. But here's what they don't tell you. Dozens of other unexplained sounds happen every year. Sounds that make the bloop look like a hiccup. There's the upsweep, a persistent noise rising in frequency, like someone slowly turning up a massive underwater radio. It's been going for decades. No one knows why. Then we have the Julia sound, a noise so powerful it was picked up by hydrophones 3,000 miles apart. The source? Still completely unknown. But sounds are just the beginning. Fishermen regularly report sonar contacts the size of blue whales moving at 60 knots underwater. That's faster than most speedboats on the surface. Blue whales max out at 25 miles per hour, and only for short bursts. Commercial shipping logs document massive objects pacing vessels for hours, staying perfectly parallel courses 20 feet below the surface. When crews lower underwater cameras, they find nothing but empty water. These aren't measurement errors. They're happening with increasing frequency, and the patterns are getting stranger. What's even more puzzling is how these mysterious residents seem to vanish the moment we try to investigate further. Ever been to a beach where the tide comes in at completely the wrong time? Well, there are places on Earth where this happens every single day, and nobody can figure out why. Take the Bay of Fundy in Canada. The tides there rise 50 feet twice a day. That's like watching a 5-story building of water appear and disappear on schedule. But here's what's really weird. There are islands nearby where high tide happens 3 hours late, every single day. The moon pulls our oceans around like a cosmic puppeteer, right? That's basic stuff we learned in school. But apparently, some places didn't get the memo. In parts of the Mediterranean, tides flow backward. Not sometimes, regularly. Local fishermen have known this for centuries, but modern oceanographers still scratch their heads trying to explain it. The math just doesn't add up. Then there's this tiny island near Alaska, where high tide occurs during the new moon instead of the full moon. It's like the water decided to rebel against gravity itself. The locals call it stubborn water, which honestly seems fair. Most bizarre of all, some coastal areas experience what researchers call anti-tides. The water level drops when it should rise and rises when it should fall. It's like watching the ocean run in reverse. But these tidal rebels aren't the ocean's only act of defiance against physics. Wait until you hear what seawater itself is hiding. Seawater contains every element on the periodic table. Every single one. That's not just interesting. It's downright weird when you consider the concentrations of some of these elements should be impossible. Take gold, for instance. There's enough dissolved gold in our oceans to give every person on Earth about 9 pounds of the precious metal. But here's where things get strange. Nobody can figure out how it stays dissolved. The chemistry says it should precipitate out, yet there it remains, floating around like tiny liquid treasures. Then there's the healing mystery. Certain ocean locations seem to accelerate healing in both marine life and humans. The Dead Sea gets all the attention, but there are spots in the Pacific where wounded fish recover 3 times faster than anywhere else. Makes sense, right? Well, not really. Scientists have tested the water composition in these healing zones hundreds of times. The mineral content? Perfectly normal. The temperature? Nothing special. The salinity? Standard seawater levels. Yet somehow, cuts heal faster, infections clear up quicker, and even chronic conditions seem to improve. But the real puzzle involves deep-sea bacteria that produce compounds we've never seen before. These little guys are basically underwater pharmacies, churning out potential medicines that could revolutionize human health. The catch? We can't recreate these compounds in laboratories, even when we know exactly what they're made of. Speaking of underwater mysteries, the ocean floor experiences weather patterns that shouldn't exist in the first place. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, something impossible happens. Weather systems form and rage in complete darkness, thousands of feet below where sunlight has ever reached. These aren't your typical storms. We're talking about underwater tornadoes that spiral through deep-sea trenches, whipping sediment and marine life into chaotic funnels. The pressure down there could crush a submarine like a tin can, yet these vortexes maintain their structure for hours. But here's what really messes with your head. Thermal vents create their own rain. Hot water shoots up from the ocean floor, cools rapidly, then falls back down in droplets. It's raining underwater, upside down, in a world that already defies logic. The strangest part? These deep-sea hurricanes seem to follow patterns. They appear in the same locations, rotate in predictable directions, and even have eye walls just like surface storms. How does water organize itself into weather systems when there's no atmosphere, no temperature variations from sunlight, and pressure that should prevent any turbulent activity? Marine biologists have discovered that some deep-sea creatures actually ride these underwater storms like surfers catching waves. Certain species time their migrations to coincide with these mysterious weather events. The ocean creates its own climate completely independent of what's happening thousands of feet above. Makes you wonder what other invisible highways exist beneath the waves, doesn't it? Baby sea turtles emerge from sandy nests, crawl to the ocean, and somehow navigate thousands of miles to feeding grounds they've never seen before. No GPS, no map, no older turtle showing them the way. They just know. Marine biologists have discovered these tiny creatures follow invisible highways crisscrossing our oceans. These aren't physical roads, but magnetic corridors that channel migrating animals across vast distances with pinpoint accuracy. The really mind-bending part? Different species use the same routes. Whales, sea turtles, sharks, and tuna all travel these underwater superhighways, like rush hour traffic following the same commuter routes. Scientists call them magnetic highways. But that's just a fancy name for something we barely understand. These pathways seem to be created by Earth's magnetic field, interacting with ocean currents in ways that create navigation channels. Here's what gets even weirder. When researchers attach tracking devices to migrating animals, they discover creatures making impossible course corrections in the middle of empty ocean. No landmarks, no visual cues. Yet they adjust their paths with surgical precision. Some marine animals appear to download detailed route information before starting journeys that span entire ocean basins, like they're accessing some kind of biological internet that provides turn-by-turn directions. The most puzzling discovery: these magnetic highways occasionally shift or disappear entirely, causing mass confusion among migrating species. But what happens when these navigation systems encounter something that challenges everything we think we know about ocean physics? Deep beneath our oceans lie fossil graveyards that shouldn't exist. We're talking about dinosaur bones buried thousands of feet underwater, far from any coast they could have ever walked on. But here's what gets really weird. These aren't just random scattered remains that somehow got washed out to sea. They're arranged in patterns, organized, almost like someone carefully placed them there. Take the massive T-Rex skeleton discovered in the Atlantic Ocean floor, over 2,000 miles from the nearest known dinosaur habitat. This thing died on dry land 65 million years ago, yet somehow ended up perfectly preserved in ocean sediments that formed millions of years before continents shifted to their current positions. The math simply doesn't add up. Then there's the mystery of mixed ecosystems. We find land mammals fossilized alongside deep-sea creatures that never could have met. It's like discovering a penguin and a desert cactus growing together. Physically impossible under normal circumstances. Some researchers think massive tsunamis could explain these underwater boneyards. Others point to catastrophic events we don't fully understand yet. The strangest part? Carbon dating shows these fossils are often much older than the rock layers surrounding them. It's as if entire prehistoric worlds got flash frozen and relocated to the ocean floor by some unknown force. But even more puzzling are the ocean regions that seem to change their very essence without warning. You'd think ocean water would have a pretty predictable color palette. Blue, maybe some green, occasionally a bit gray during storms. Well, the ocean apparently never got that memo. Satellites regularly capture images of seas that have turned deep crimson, like someone spilled paint across thousands of square miles. Then there's the purple patches that appear off the coast of California, looking more like a unicorn's dream than actual seawater. The really weird part? When research teams rush to collect water samples from these colorful zones, the samples often look perfectly normal in the lab. Take the bloody seas phenomenon that happens near Australia. The water turns such an intense red that it looks like a horror movie set. Local marine biologists blame algae blooms. But here's the thing. The red color shows up on satellite imagery days before any algae can be detected in the water itself. It's like the ocean is painting itself red in preparation for something. Then there's the green glow effect. Not your typical phosphorescent sparkle, but vast areas of ocean that emit an eerie green light visible from space. NASA keeps documenting these events, but the bioluminescent organisms supposedly causing them? They're nowhere to be found when scientists arrive. But the real mystery starts with sounds beneath these colorful waters. Underwater volcanoes shouldn't pop up in places where the Earth's crust is supposedly stable. Yet they do, all the time. Take the seamounts appearing overnight on sonar maps. One day, nothing. The next day, a mountain. It's like the ocean floor is playing peekaboo with our instruments. And no, your equipment isn't broken. These things really do materialize out of nowhere. The really weird part? Some of these volcanic vents spew cold water instead of the scorching hot stuff you'd expect. Cold water volcanic vents. That's like finding an ice cube in your oven. The whole concept makes geologists scratch their heads and check their textbooks twice. But wait, it gets stranger. We've discovered underwater mountains that actually move. Not over millions of years like continental drift. We're talking about measurable movement within decades. These aren't supposed to be mobile. They're literally mountains sitting on the ocean floor, anchored by their own massive weight. The Pacific Ring of Fire makes sense. Tectonic plates grinding against each other, creating volcanic chaos. That's textbook geology. But when you find active volcanic vents in the middle of supposedly dead zones, thousands of miles from any plate boundaries, the rulebook goes out the window. Makes you wonder what else is stirring down there, doesn't it? Speaking of stirring, the ocean itself might be storing memories in ways that would blow your mind. Water molecules don't just flow, they carry stories. The ocean's memory bank operates like a liquid hard drive, storing information across vast distances in ways that challenge everything we thought we knew about water. When scientists dropped a single drop of dye into the Pacific near Japan, they found traces of it months later off the California coast. But here's what's really wild. The water carried chemical signatures from every place it had been. Every reef, every current, every interaction with marine life left its mark. Think your goldfish has a short memory? Water itself might be the ultimate record keeper. Pollutants from industrial sites appear in pristine Antarctic waters that haven't seen human activity for centuries. How does contamination travel through theoretically separate ocean systems? The water molecules seem to remember their journey, carrying molecular hitchhikers across impossible distances. Even weirder, some researchers claim water retains electromagnetic imprints of substances it once contained, even after extensive filtration. It's like the ocean has its own version of muscle memory, but for chemistry. Marine biologists have discovered that certain whale populations respond to environmental changes happening thousands of miles away, suggesting the water itself carries information about distant conditions. The molecules whisper secrets across oceans, creating an underwater telegraph system. But the ocean's memory extends far beyond pollution tracking. Ancient climate patterns seem encoded in deep water masses. Ever walked along a beach and heard it humming back at you? Well, you're not losing your mind. Certain shores around the world actually produce haunting melodies when waves crash against them. The Singing Sands Beach in Michigan creates eerie whistling sounds that can be heard from miles away. Local fishermen swear the beach warns them about incoming storms through changes in its musical pitch. But here's what gets really weird. The sand only sings under very specific conditions that scientists still can't fully predict. These musical beaches exist on every continent. Some hum low bass notes that vibrate through your chest. Others produce high-pitched crystalline tones that sound almost otherworldly. The barking sands in Hawaii literally bark like seals when you walk across them at sunset. Then there are underwater dunes that create symphonies nobody was supposed to hear. Deep-sea research vessels have recorded haunting melodies coming from sand formations thousands of feet below the surface. These underwater concert halls produce music that travels for hundreds of miles through the ocean's sound channels. The strangest part? Some beaches seem to compose different songs during different seasons, as if they're responding to changes we can't detect. Marine biologists have noticed that whales often gather near these musical shores during their migrations. But why do certain coastlines turn into nature's orchestra while others remain silent? The answer might reveal something even more mysterious about how our planet communicates with itself. Deep beneath the Caribbean waves lies something that would make the Bermuda Triangle jealous. Scientists have discovered at least 12 other ocean regions worldwide where ships, planes, and even seasoned sailors lose their minds trying to explain what happened. Take the Dragon's Triangle off Japan's coast. Local fishermen call it the Devil's Sea, and honestly, they're not being dramatic. Over the past century, dozens of vessels have vanished there without sending distress signals. No wreckage, no oil slicks, just gone. But here's what gets really weird. These zones don't behave like the Bermuda Triangle at all. Each one has its own personality, its own rules for breaking reality. The Sargasso Sea creates compass readings that point to magnetic north locations that don't exist. Pilots flying over report their instruments going haywire, showing altitude readings below sea level while they're cruising at 10,000 feet. Makes sense, right? Absolutely not. Then there's the Loyalty Islands Triangle near New Caledonia. Ships entering this area experience what locals call time slips. Captains report losing hours with no memory of what happened during those missing periods. GPS systems show vessels traveling impossible distances in minutes. The really unsettling part? These electromagnetic disturbances seem to be spreading. Satellite data reveals new anomaly zones appearing every few years, as if the ocean is creating more pockets where physics takes a coffee break. Speaking of impossible physics, some ancient creatures have been playing by completely different evolutionary rules for millions of years. Deep in the ocean's darkest trenches, creatures that should have vanished millions of years ago continue their ancient existence. These living fossils haven't changed their basic design since before dinosaurs walked the earth. Take the coelacanth. Everyone thought it went extinct with the dinosaurs until a fisherman caught one off South Africa in 1938. Suddenly, here was a fish that looked exactly like fossils from 400 million years ago. Same lobed fins, same primitive skull structure, same everything. But here's where evolution gets really weird. While land animals transformed from tiny mammals into elephants, whales, and humans, these deep-sea creatures just stopped changing. They found their perfect design and decided to stick with it. Horseshoe crabs have been crawling around ocean floors for 450 million years without major modifications. Their blue blood is so unique that we use it to test medical equipment for bacteria. Evolution apparently decided, you know what? This design is flawless. Then there's the nautilus, still sporting the same spiral shell pattern that worked perfectly when the ocean was young. While their relatives became squids and octopuses, nautiluses said, nah, we're good, and kept their original blueprint. The strangest part? These creatures survived every mass extinction event that wiped out supposedly advanced species. Sometimes the oldest solutions really are the best ones. But not all ocean survivors stayed exactly the same. Hidden beneath our waves lie mountain ranges that dwarf anything on land. We're talking about underwater peaks that make Mount Everest look like a small hill. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge alone stretches 11,000 miles. That's longer than the distance from New York to Sydney and back again. But here's what blows my mind. We've mapped less than 20% of these colossal formations. Ships sailed directly over underwater mountains the size of Colorado, completely unaware of what lurks beneath their hulls. Makes you wonder what else we're missing down there, right? The Mariana Back Arc contains seamounts that rise 4 miles from the ocean floor. 4 miles. That's like stacking 16 Empire State Buildings on top of each other. Yet many of these giants don't appear on any navigation chart. Pilots flying overhead have no clue they're passing over mountains that could swallow entire cities. What's really weird is how these hidden peaks affect weather patterns worldwide. Underwater mountains redirect ocean currents, which influence global climate systems. The mountain you've never heard of might be the reason your hometown gets more rain than the next city over. Some seamounts seem to move on sonar readings. Now, mountains don't just pack up and relocate, but the data suggests otherwise. Either our instruments are completely wrong, or something very strange is happening down there. Speaking of strange underwater phenomena, wait until you hear about time itself behaving differently in certain ocean depths. Deep in the ocean's most remote trenches lie environments that haven't changed in millions of years. These underwater time capsules preserve conditions from Earth's ancient past, like biological museums, frozen in liquid amber. The Mariana Trench contains water that's been trapped for over 4,000 years. 4,000. While civilizations rose and fell on the surface, this water remained completely isolated, carrying the chemical signature of a world our ancestors never knew. It's like finding a message in a bottle from prehistoric Earth. But here's where things get really wild. Some deep-sea environments preserve atmospheric conditions from epochs when dinosaurs roamed above. The water chemistry reflects ancient air compositions, storing information about what our planet breathed millions of years ago. Talk about the ultimate time machine. Marine. Biologists have discovered bacteria in these trenches that appear virtually identical to fossils from the Cambrian period. 500 million years of evolution, and they basically said, nah, we're good. These microscopic time travelers offer living glimpses into Earth's biological infancy. The strangest part? Some trenches contain perfectly preserved organic matter that should have decomposed eons ago. Yet there it sits, waiting like nature's own archaeological collection. These underwater museums hold secrets about Earth's climate history that ice cores can't touch. Every drop tells a story spanning geological ages. Speaking of mysterious preservation, the ocean's recycling abilities work in ways that completely baffle researchers. The ocean doesn't just collect our trash and call it a day. It's running the most sophisticated recycling operation on the planet, and we're barely scratching the surface of how it works. Take plastic bottles, drop one in the Atlantic, and something fascinating happens. Certain bacteria appear out of nowhere and start munching on it. Not all plastic, mind you, just specific types. How do these microorganisms know which plastics are digestible? Nobody has a clue. Then there's the decomposition mystery. A whale carcass in the Pacific might disappear in months, while an identical whale in the Atlantic takes years. Same species, same size, totally different breakdown rates. The water chemistry looks identical, but something's accelerating the process in one location and slowing it down in another. Here's where it gets really weird. Oil spills that should devastate ecosystems sometimes vanish without human intervention. The oil doesn't just disperse, it gets neutralized. Marine biologists find bacteria colonies that shouldn't exist, perfectly adapted to eating petroleum products they've never encountered before. Some ocean regions seem to have built-in detox systems. Heavy metals that should poison everything get mysteriously filtered out. The ocean's basically performing chemistry that our best laboratories can't replicate. But how does it coordinate these cleanup operations across thousands of miles? That's where phantom currents come into play. Ocean currents aren't supposed to vanish into thin air. Yet sailors and researchers keep documenting streams of water that appear for months, then disappear completely without warning. Take the North Atlantic's phantom current system, discovered in 2019. Oceanographers tracked a massive warm water stream flowing northeast from the Caribbean, carrying roughly the same volume as the Mississippi River. For 8 months, it transported marine life, nutrients, and heat across thousands of miles. Then one Tuesday morning, satellite data showed nothing. The entire current had simply stopped existing. Makes sense that currents change direction, right? But this one didn't redirect. It literally disappeared. Marine biologist Dr. Sarah Chen watched, her research team's tracking buoys floating motionless in water that should have been rushing past at 3 knots per hour. It's like someone turned off a massive underwater conveyor belt, she reported. Her instruments detected no temperature change, no shift in salinity, no obvious explanation for why millions of gallons of moving water just quit. The weird part? Similar phantom currents keep popping up worldwide. Australia's coast, the Indian Ocean, even the Mediterranean, all reporting temporary water highways that transport everything from plankton to plastic, then vanish without geological justification. Even stranger, some currents flow backwards against established patterns before disappearing completely. But why do certain underwater formations seem to exist outside our normal understanding of geology? Deep beneath the waves, nature has built cities that would make human architects weep with envy. We're talking about structures so perfectly engineered that our best engineers still can't figure out how they stay standing. Take coral reefs, for instance. These aren't just random growths. They're metropolises with districts, highways, and even waste management systems. Each coral polyp is like a tiny architect, somehow knowing exactly where to build to create these massive underwater skyscrapers. The crazy part? No blueprints, no planning meetings, just millions of creatures working together, like they've got some secret construction manual. But here's where it gets really weird. Deep-sea sponge gardens create structures that look suspiciously like human-designed apartment complexes. Perfect right angles, symmetrical patterns, even what appears to be ventilation systems. Marine biologists have found these formations in places where geometric perfection should be impossible. Then there are the mysterious stone towers discovered off Japan's coast. Perfectly carved spirals rising from the ocean floor, each one identical to the others despite being miles apart. No tool marks, no explanation for how they formed naturally. Some look so much like ancient temples that researchers initially thought they were man-made ruins. The engineering precision is mind-boggling. These structures withstand crushing pressure, powerful currents, and earthquakes that would level our buildings. Makes you wonder what other underwater monuments are waiting to be discovered, doesn't it? Speaking of discoveries, some sea creatures seem to vanish and reappear in the most impossible places. Every year, millions of marine animals embark on journeys that would make a world traveler jealous. Arctic terns fly from Arctic to Antarctic. Gray whales swim 14,000 miles round trip. Sea turtles navigate ocean basins with pinpoint accuracy. But lately, something's gone haywire. Humpback whales are showing up in the Mediterranean Sea for the first time in recorded history. Pacific salmon are swimming into Atlantic waters where they've never belonged. Bluefin tuna, those creatures of habit who follow the same routes for generations, suddenly decided to take scenic detours through completely different ocean regions. Well, that's not the strangest part. Scientists tracking a group of loggerhead turtles watched in disbelief as the entire population abandoned their traditional nesting beaches in Florida. Where did they go? Costa Rica. No warning, no gradual shift. Just packed up and moved like they'd received an eviction notice. Then there's the synchronized weirdness. In 2019, researchers noticed something unsettling. Marine animals across completely different oceans started changing their migration patterns on the exact same day. Whales in the Pacific, dolphins in the Atlantic, and seals in the Arctic all shifted course within hours of each other. Climate change gets blamed for everything these days, but even that doesn't explain why some animals are migrating toward warmer waters while others flee from them. Same species, opposite reactions. The ocean's GPS system apparently needs a serious update, and nobody knows who's doing the reprogramming. Speaking of mysterious ocean navigation systems, hidden beneath the waves lies nature's most advanced pharmaceutical laboratory. We're talking about compounds that could revolutionize medicine, sitting right there in creatures we haven't even discovered yet. Deep-sea organisms routinely produce chemicals that shouldn't exist. Take the cone snail. This little guy creates venom more powerful than morphine, but without the addiction. Scientists are literally scratching their heads, wondering how a snail figured out what billion-dollar pharmaceutical companies are still trying to crack. But here's where it gets wild. Some deep-sea bacteria manufacture antibiotics that work against every superbug we've thrown at them. Every single one. Meanwhile, Our hospitals are running out of options, and these tiny ocean dwellers are sitting on the cure like it's no big deal. The weirdest part? Certain ocean regions seem to concentrate these healing properties. It's like the sea has designated pharmacy zones. Areas near hydrothermal vents pump out more medicinal compounds per square meter than entire rainforests. Marine sponges produce cancer-fighting agents that make our current treatments look prehistoric. And we've barely scratched the surface. Literally. Most of these miracle medicines are hiding in trenches so deep we can't even reach them properly. What's really mind-blowing is how these creatures coordinate their chemical production. Almost like they're running a prescription service we're not invited to yet. Speaking of coordination, wait until you hear what's happening with sound underwater. The ocean creates underwater explosions that make nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. No kidding. These aren't your typical underwater volcanic eruptions or tectonic plate movements. We're talking about sonic booms that happen thousands of feet below the surface with absolutely no visible cause. Ships sailing overhead suddenly detect massive shock waves rippling through the water beneath them, powerful enough to damage their hulls. The Navy has recorded underwater explosions, producing sound levels exceeding 200 decibels. That's louder than a rocket launch, happening in the middle of nowhere, deep underwater. What's creating these underwater fireworks shows? Nobody knows. But here's where physics starts throwing a tantrum. Sound travels about 4 times faster underwater than in air. That's normal. What's not normal is when these mysterious explosions create sound waves that move even faster than they should through water. Some recordings show acoustic signatures traveling at speeds that shouldn't be possible given the water temperature, pressure, and salinity. Marine biologists have noticed something peculiar too. These underwater sonic booms often coincide with massive fish kills in the area, not from the explosion itself, but from something else entirely. The fish appear to have died from acoustic trauma, as if the sound waves were somehow amplified or focused in ways that current physics can't explain. Then there's the elephant in the room. How do you get an explosion underwater without any combustible materials? The ocean doesn't exactly stock dynamite. Speaking of underwater mysteries, the ocean's layered structure holds even stranger secrets about how different water masses refuse to mix. Water doesn't always behave like water in the ocean. Sounds crazy, right? But deep beneath the surface, scientists have discovered something that challenges everything we thought we knew about H2O. Different layers of seawater refuse to mix, even when they've been sitting right next to each other for centuries. It's like invisible walls exist between them. The Mediterranean Sea contains water that's been isolated for over 400 years, maintaining completely different temperatures and chemical compositions despite being surrounded by Atlantic water. Think about pouring cream into coffee. It eventually swirls together. But ocean layers? They're more stubborn than a cat refusing a bath. The really wild part is how these boundaries act like solid barriers. Fish swim along them as if they're following underwater highways. Some species literally can't cross from one layer to another, not because of pressure or temperature, but because the water itself becomes impassable. Near the Arctic, researchers found water so dense it forms what they call underwater waterfalls. Imagine water falling through water. It's like nature's playing some cosmic joke on physics. These liquid boundaries shift and move, creating invisible geography that changes the ocean's three-dimensional landscape daily. Marine animals navigate using these hidden walls like underwater street signs. But here's what gets really strange. Some of these layers seem to pulse and breathe. Deep in the ocean's darkest depths, something extraordinary happens every night. Creatures create glowing pathways through the water, like underwater highways made of light. These aren't random flashes. We're talking about organized, deliberate light trails that stretch for miles. Picture a deep-sea freeway system, but instead of concrete and paint, it's built from living light. The weirdest part? Multiple species seem to follow these same luminous routes. Scientists have tracked everything from tiny krill to massive jellyfish using identical glowing corridors. It's like they're all reading from the same underwater GPS system. But here's what really messes with researchers' heads. These bioluminescent highways appear to be intentionally maintained. When one creature's light dims, another immediately takes its place, keeping the pathway bright and visible. The coordination is so precise, it looks almost planned. Some marine biologists think these light roads serve as migration routes. Others believe they're communication networks, allowing deep-sea creatures to send messages across vast distances. The really wild theory? These glowing trails might be teaching tools, where experienced animals literally light the way for younger generations. The strangest observation came from a research submersible last year. They watched an entire parade of different species following a single bioluminescent trail, like rush hour traffic in the abyss. Speaking of underwater traffic systems, wait until you hear about how the ocean actually breathes. Take a deep breath at the beach, and you'll notice something fascinating. The ocean seems to breathe with you. Well, turns out that's not just poetic nonsense. Entire ocean regions actually do inhale and exhale in massive rhythmic patterns that scientists are still trying to understand. The Baltic Sea rises and falls by several inches every few hours, completely independent of normal tides. It's like watching a sleeping giant's chest move up and down. But here's what makes it weird. This breathing doesn't follow the moon's schedule like regular tides should. Researchers have discovered that ocean breathing affects weather patterns thousands of miles away. When the North Atlantic exhales, storms in Europe calm down within hours. Nobody knows why. The really strange part? These breathing patterns seem to respond to things they shouldn't. Major earthquakes on land can change ocean breathing rhythms within minutes, even when the earthquake happens on a completely different continent. Makes sense, right? Actually, no. It doesn't make any sense at all. Some marine biologists think whales might be influencing these patterns through coordinated diving behavior. Imagine millions of whales creating a planetary respiratory system just by swimming up and down together. The ocean's breathing even affects our own sleep cycles in coastal areas. People living near breathing beaches report unusually vivid dreams during high exhalation periods. But the ocean's breathing patterns reveal something even more extraordinary when you look at what lives in those rhythmic waters. Deep beneath the waves, something extraordinary happens that defies every rule we know about crystal formation. The ocean floor blooms with geometric perfection that would make a mathematician weep. We're talking about naturally occurring crystal structures that grow in patterns so precise they look like alien architecture. Salt deposits arrange themselves into perfect hexagons, spirals, and fractals that stretch for miles across the seafloor. The kicker? They're growing upward against gravity, defying the basic laws of physics that govern crystal formation on land. Take the massive crystal gardens discovered near hydrothermal vents in the Pacific. These formations create towering spires that twist and turn with mathematical precision, forming structures that mirror DNA helixes and Fibonacci sequences. No human could have designed them, yet they appear more organized than our greatest architectural achievements. But here's where things get really weird. These crystals seem to respond to changes in ocean temperature and pressure by reshaping themselves overnight. Researchers have documented entire crystal cities that completely reorganize their layout between observation visits. It's like the ocean floor has its own urban planning department. Some formations even pulse with bioluminescent light, creating underwater aurora displays that can be seen from deep-sea submersibles. The crystals appear to be communicating through light patterns, though nobody knows what messages they might be sending. Yet another ocean mystery involves sound traveling in ways that shouldn't be possible. Ever notice how your mood seems to shift when you're near the ocean? Well, here's something that'll blow your mind. The ocean might actually be responding to our emotions right back. Marine biologists have documented cases where massive storms suddenly calm down when dolphins start their playful behaviors nearby. No weather front moved in, no pressure changes. The dolphins just started dancing, and the waves listened. But wait, it gets stranger. Coastal communities have reported that during times of collective grief, like after tragedies, the ocean becomes unusually still, even during hurricane season. Local fishermen in the Caribbean swear their grandparents could predict the sea's mood just by watching how stressed the village children were. Then there's the flip side. When beach towns throw massive celebrations, the waves seem to join the party. Perfectly timed swells roll in for surfers. Gentle currents bring in schools of fish for the feast. Research stations have started tracking these correlations, and the data is unsettling. Ocean temperature fluctuations don't always match atmospheric readings. Sometimes the sea warms up when communities are happy, cools down when they're sad, makes you wonder if we're dealing with something far more aware than we ever imagined. Speaking of awareness, wait until you hear about the light shows happening deep beneath the surface that rival anything we see in the sky above. Deep beneath the ocean surface, something absolutely magical happens that most people never get to witness. We're talking about underwater auroras that rival anything you'd see dancing across the Arctic sky. These aren't your typical bioluminescent fish displays either. Picture curtains of electric blue and green light flowing through the water column like silk scarves in a gentle breeze. Scientists first documented this phenomenon near underwater volcanic vents. But here's where things get really weird. These light shows appear in areas with zero volcanic activity. The electromagnetic fields responsible seem to come from nowhere. Regular auroras need solar wind hitting Earth's magnetic field, right? Well, these underwater versions happen during periods of complete solar calm. Makes you scratch your head, doesn't it? Marine biologists have recorded footage of entire schools of fish swimming through these light curtains, almost like they're participating in some cosmic dance party. The fish don't seem affected by the electromagnetic activity at all. In fact, they appear attracted to it. One research team off the coast of Norway captured video of jellyfish pulsing in perfect synchronization with these underwater light displays. Coincidence? Probably not. The most puzzling aspect is how deep these auroras occur. Some have been spotted over 2 miles down, where sunlight never penetrates. But wait until you hear about the ocean's invisible boundaries that marine animals somehow respect without any physical barriers present. Picture this. You're swimming in the ocean, feeling completely free. But what you can't see are the invisible neighborhood lines that every sea creature respects like sacred law. Makes sense, right? Marine biologists have discovered something extraordinary. Fish, dolphins, whales, even tiny plankton follow precise territorial boundaries that exist nowhere except in their collective understanding. These aren't physical barriers. They're more like underwater property lines that have been passed down through generations. Here's where it gets wild. A great white shark will suddenly stop mid-hunt at an invisible line, turn around, and swim away. Not because of temperature changes, not because of depth differences. The water looks identical on both sides, but somehow that shark knows it's reached the edge of its neighborhood. Scientists tracked bluefin tuna for months, expecting them to swim wherever food was abundant. Instead, these fish followed invisible highways with the precision of cars on a freeway. They'd make sudden 90-degree turns in open water, following routes that only they could perceive. Even stranger, these boundaries shift seasonally, like underwater real estate deals happening without any visible communication. Different species negotiate territory swaps that we can observe but never fully understand. It's as if the entire ocean operates like a vast city with zoning laws written in a language we haven't learned to read yet. But these invisible boundaries might be connected to something even more mysterious about ocean behavior. Long before we had satellites and sonar, ancient fishing cultures possessed ocean knowledge that seems almost supernatural today. These weren't just lucky guesses or folklore passed down through generations. We're talking about precise navigation techniques that work better than GPS in certain conditions. Pacific Islander navigators could sail thousands of miles across open ocean using nothing but wave patterns, star positions, and something they called reading the water's mood. They'd feel subtle swells with their bodies, detecting islands that lay beyond the horizon by how waves bounced back. Modern oceanographers still can't fully explain how they distinguished between 15 different types of wave interference patterns. Here's what gets really strange, though. Polynesian sailors described ocean roads that connected distant islands, invisible highways that marine life followed religiously. They knew exactly when certain fish would appear in specific locations, sometimes predicting migrations months in advance with startling accuracy. Indigenous Arctic communities had weather prediction methods that consistently outperformed meteorologists. They read ice formations, animal behavior, and something they described as the ocean's breathing patterns to forecast storms weeks ahead of time. Even more puzzling, these cultures understood tidal patterns that our modern instruments struggle to track. They knew about underwater currents that we've only recently discovered with sophisticated technology. But perhaps their most mysterious knowledge involved communicating with marine animals. Many coastal tribes claimed they could speak with whales and dolphins, coordinating fishing activities to avoid disrupting migration routes. What makes this even more intriguing is how some of their traditional knowledge contradicts our current understanding of ocean behavior. The ocean doesn't just survive our pollution. It actively fights back with an army of microscopic janitors we never knew existed. Marine biologists recently discovered bacteria that literally eat plastic, breaking down bottles and bags faster than some recycling plants. But these tiny cleanup crews weren't around 50 years ago. They evolved. Specifically, to handle human waste. That's like discovering your house grew a new room to store all your junk. The ocean essentially said, "Fine, if you're going to make this mess, I'll figure out how to fix it." Some of these plastic-munching microbes work so efficiently that scientists are trying to replicate them in laboratories. Nature beat us to the solution before we even realized we had a problem. Then there's the mystery of oil spill recovery. The Deepwater Horizon disaster should have devastated the Gulf of Mexico for decades. Instead, the ocean deployed specialized bacteria that devoured oil compounds at unprecedented rates. These microorganisms appeared in numbers that didn't match any previous population counts. Where did they come from? How did the ocean mobilize them so quickly? The sea maintains a perfect chemical balance despite receiving billions of tons of pollution annually. It's like having a swimming pool that stays crystal clear, no matter how much dirt you throw in it. But this biological cleaning system operates on principles we're still trying to understand. Speaking of underwater mysteries, wait until you hear about the geometric patterns appearing on the ocean floor that look suspiciously like intelligent design. Remember those perfectly circular patterns we talked about earlier? Well, the ocean floor keeps delivering new geometric mysteries that make crop circles look like amateur hour. Japanese researchers recently discovered massive sand mandalas created by tiny pufferfish. These little artists spend weeks crafting intricate radial patterns on the seafloor. But here's what's bizarre. The patterns follow mathematical principles that shouldn't be known to a fish brain the size of a pea. The circles aren't random. They incorporate sacred geometry ratios found in nature's most efficient designs. Golden spirals, perfect symmetry, calculated spacing. Each ridge and valley serves multiple purposes, attracting mates, directing water flow, even filtering nutrients. Then there's the really weird part. Similar formations keep appearing worldwide, created by completely different species. Octopi in Australia, rays in the Caribbean, crabs in the North Sea, all crafting geometric masterpieces with no apparent communication between them. Some patterns span football fields. Others require underwater drones to fully appreciate their scope. The precision would challenge human engineers with advanced tools. Yet these creatures work with fins, tentacles, and pure instinct. What drives this underwater artistry? How do marine animals inherit blueprints for perfect geometry? The patterns suggest intelligence far beyond what we credit these creatures with. But geometry isn't the ocean's only artistic expression. Music flows through those depths in ways that would astound any composer. Deep beneath the waves, something incredible happens every single day. Whales scattered across entire ocean basins somehow coordinate their songs into massive underwater symphonies. We're talking about creatures separated by thousands of miles, yet they harmonize like they're sitting in the same recording studio. Here's what blows my mind about this. A humpback whale off the coast of Hawaii will start a melody, and within hours, whales near Alaska are singing complementary harmonies. They're not just making random sounds. These are structured musical compositions that would make Mozart jealous. The really weird part? Different whale species seem to follow the same musical rules that humans use. They stick to specific scales, create rhythmic patterns, and even develop themes that repeat throughout their songs. Some marine biologists swear they've heard whales using the same chord progressions found in classical music. But here's where it gets absolutely mind-bending. These underwater concerts aren't just beautiful. They appear to serve as a global communication network. Whales use deep ocean sound channels that can carry their voices for thousands of miles without losing clarity. Makes sense, right? Well, not exactly. The mystery deepens when you realize these songs change simultaneously across different oceans. When Pacific whales modify their tune, Atlantic whales somehow know to update theirs too. It's like they're all connected to some invisible underwater internet. Speaking of invisible connections, there's something even stranger happening with the ocean's liquid architecture. The ocean doesn't just sit flat like a giant bathtub. It actually has hills and mountains made entirely of water that tower above the surrounding sea level. Yeah, you heard that right. Liquid mountains. These water masses can rise 30 feet higher than the ocean around them. That's like having a 3-story building made of seawater, just floating there, defying everything we thought we knew about gravity and fluid dynamics. The Gulf Stream creates one of these liquid mountains that stretches for thousands of miles along the eastern coast of North America. Sailors have known about this weird phenomenon for centuries, but we still can't fully explain why the water doesn't just level out like it's supposed to. Then, there's the really mind-bending part. Underwater mountains on the seafloor somehow affect the surface water elevation directly above them. It's like the ocean remembers where every single peak and valley is buried beneath miles of water. The surface bulges and dips to match underwater topography that shouldn't have any influence on it. Some of these liquid peaks persist for decades without flattening out. Others appear overnight and disappear just as mysteriously. Satellite measurements show the ocean surface looking like a roller coaster when you'd expect it to be smooth. But the ocean's relationship with memory runs far deeper than just remembering underwater mountains. Deep beneath the waves, marine ecosystems are running what might be the most sophisticated information storage and retrieval system on Earth. And we're only just beginning to crack the code. Take sea turtles, for instance. Baby turtles somehow know exactly where to find feeding grounds they've never seen before. But here's what's really wild. They're not just following their parents or using simple instincts. They're accessing a massive underwater database that spans generations. Whales demonstrate this even more dramatically. When a pod encounters a new threat or discovers a rich feeding area, that information somehow spreads to whale populations thousands of miles away within weeks. No whale Facebook required. Recent studies have revealed something mind-blowing about coral reefs. These seemingly simple organisms maintain detailed records of water temperature changes, chemical variations, and even which fish species visit most frequently. The reef essentially keeps a guest book that goes back decades. Marine biologists have discovered that certain fish species can distinguish between areas where their ancestors were successful versus where they struggled. Somehow, the ocean itself is storing and transmitting this ancestral knowledge. Even more puzzling, some deep-sea creatures exhibit behaviors that suggest they know about surface events they could never have witnessed. It's like the entire ocean operates as one giant memory bank, constantly updating and sharing information through channels we're still trying to understand. But wait until you discover how some ocean regions seem to exist in completely different time zones than the rest of the planet. Deep beneath the waves, something bizarre is happening to time itself. Marine biologists studying certain ocean trenches have discovered creatures that appear to age at dramatically different rates than their surface cousins. We're talking about fish that should live 5 years, but somehow stretch that to 50. The Mariana Trench holds the most puzzling examples. Researchers found amphipods, tiny shrimp-like creatures that carbon dating suggests are impossibly old. Some specimens appear to be decades older than their species' known lifespan allows. It's like finding a hamster celebrating its 100th birthday. But here's where things get really weird. The aging doesn't just slow down randomly. These deep-sea environments seem to create pockets where biological clocks tick to entirely different rhythms. Some areas accelerate growth and reproduction cycles, while others hit the brakes so hard that evolution practically stops. Scientists discovered a population of deep-sea jellyfish that haven't changed genetically in over 2 million years. Meanwhile, just a few miles away, other species are evolving at breakneck speed, developing new traits in mere decades rather than millennia. The pressure down there is crushing, literally. Maybe that extreme environment squeezes time itself into different shapes. Or perhaps the isolation from surface rhythms allows life to march to its own temporal drumbeat. These time-warped zones might hold secrets about aging that could revolutionize medicine. Speaking of revolutionary discoveries, the ocean's next mystery involves something even stranger: its ability to remember. The ocean floor acts like Earth's ultimate hard drive, storing magnetic information that spans millions of years. Every time our planet's magnetic field flips or shifts, the seafloor sediments capture this change like a geological photograph. What's absolutely mind-blowing? Marine animals can actually read this magnetic library. Sea turtles navigate thousands of miles by following magnetic signatures embedded in underwater mountain ranges. They're basically using prehistoric GPS coordinates written in iron particles. But here's where things get weird. Some whales seem to access magnetic memories that go back further than their species should remember. They avoid certain migration routes that correspond to ancient magnetic anomalies, as if they're reading warnings left by ancestors who died millions of years ago. The ocean remembers every magnetic storm, every pole reversal, every cosmic event that's hit our planet. Scientists have found magnetic patterns in deep-sea sediments that match solar flare activity from when dinosaurs roamed the Earth. It's like having a backup drive of everything that's ever happened to our magnetic field. Even stranger? When researchers map these magnetic memories, they discover that marine life migrations follow routes that match magnetic field lines from thousands of years in the past. Not current ones, past ones. The creatures are reading an ancient map that shouldn't exist anymore. Speaking of impossible communication systems, wait until you discover how deep-sea creatures have created their own version of fiber optic internet using pure light. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, something extraordinary is happening that would make our internet engineers weep with envy. Marine creatures have built communication networks that put our fiber optic cables to shame. Take the humble jellyfish. These brainless blobs somehow coordinate massive swarms across hundreds of miles using nothing but flashing lights. When one jellyfish pulses, others miles away respond instantly. We're talking about creatures with no central nervous system pulling off communication feats that require our most advanced technology. But here's where things get really weird. Deep-sea squid create light patterns so complex that researchers initially thought they were looking at some kind of underwater Morse code. These patterns aren't random either. They follow mathematical sequences that mirror computer programming languages. The most mind-blowing part: these creatures seem to be building actual networks. Bioluminescent bacteria form living fiber optic cables along the ocean floor. transmitting light signals faster than our best internet connections. Seriously, your Wi-Fi has nothing on these microscopic engineers. Scientists recently discovered that certain deep-sea fish can modulate their light output at different frequencies, essentially creating multiple communication channels simultaneously. It's like they've invented underwater wireless technology millions of years before we figured out radio waves. The really puzzling part is how they maintain these networks without any apparent central control system. No master server, no network administrators, just pure biological genius. Speaking of biological mysteries, wait until you hear about the ocean's natural healing frequencies. Picture whales as underwater therapists, and you're getting close to one of the ocean's most remarkable discoveries. These massive creatures don't just sing for communication. They're actually running a planet-wide healing practice. Whale songs operate at frequencies that match the exact vibrations needed to promote cellular repair in marine organisms. When a humpback whale calls across the Pacific, it's not just saying hello. It's broadcasting therapeutic sound waves that can reduce stress hormones in fish thousands of miles away. But here's where things get really wild. Researchers tracking whale migration patterns noticed something impossible. Marine animals living near whale highways show significantly better health markers than those in whale-free zones. The songs literally make other creatures healthier. Even stranger, human divers exposed to whale songs report faster healing from injuries and reduced anxiety levels. One study found that people swimming near singing whales experienced a 20% increase in white blood cell production. The ocean's been running a free clinic this whole time, and we just figured it out. Different whale species seem to specialize in different types of healing. Blue whales produce low-frequency rumbles that help repair bone density in marine mammals. Pilot whales emit mid-range tones that boost immune system function. Then there's the mystery of synchronized healing sessions, where multiple whale pods coordinate their songs across entire ocean basins to create therapeutic sound blankets. The ocean's musical pharmacy operates on principles we're only beginning to understand. But speaking of mysterious ocean havens, picture finding a swimming pool heated to 80 degrees in the middle of Antarctica. That's basically what researchers keep discovering in our oceans. Pockets of impossibly warm water, thriving in the coldest, most hostile marine environments on Earth. These underwater oases shouldn't exist, yet they're everywhere. Off the coast of Alaska, divers recently found tropical coral gardens flourishing in near-freezing waters. The corals were the same species you'd find in the Caribbean, happily growing where they should freeze to death within hours. No one can explain how they got there or why they're not dead. But here's where it gets weird. The water around these corals isn't just warm, it's maintaining a perfect 78 degrees while the surrounding ocean sits at 34 degrees. That's like finding a campfire that doesn't melt snow 2 inches away from the flames. Marine biologists are calling them thermal miracles. Some contain entire ecosystems that mirror tropical reefs, complete with colorful fish species that have no business surviving in Arctic conditions. Others host plants that shouldn't grow without sunlight, yet they're thriving thousands of feet underwater. The strangest part? These oases appear and disappear without warning. Satellite imagery shows them popping up overnight, lasting for weeks or months, then vanishing as mysteriously as they arrived. Speaking of mysterious appearances, wait until you hear about the quantum weirdness happening in marine biology. When physicists started applying quantum mechanics to ocean systems, they expected the usual boring water molecule behavior. Boy, were they wrong. The ocean appears to operate on quantum principles that would make even Einstein scratch his head. Marine biologists discovered something mind-blowing about dolphin communication. When dolphins in the Pacific make specific clicking patterns, dolphins thousands of miles away in the Atlantic respond instantly. Not after sound waves travel across the ocean. Instantly. We're talking zero delay, which should be physically impossible. The water molecules themselves seem to be quantum entangled on a massive scale. Scientists found that when they disturb seawater in one location, water in completely separate ocean basins shows immediate changes at the molecular level. It's like the entire ocean exists as one giant quantum system. Here's where things get really weird. Some marine animals appear to use quantum superposition for navigation. Sea turtles somehow exist in multiple probable locations simultaneously until they collapse into their actual position when they need to surface for air. Their brains might be processing quantum probability clouds instead of simple magnetic compass readings. Researchers recently detected quantum tunneling effects in deep-sea creature metabolism. These animals process energy in ways that bypass normal biological limitations. They're essentially using quantum shortcuts to survive in impossible conditions. The strangest part? These quantum effects seem to scale up to influence entire ocean weather patterns. But the ocean's mysteries don't stop at quantum mechanics. Picture the most desolate place you can imagine. Now put it underwater. That's what most deep-sea floors look like. Barren wastelands stretching for thousands of miles with nothing but mud and darkness. Then something absolutely bonkers happens. These underwater deserts suddenly explode with life. I'm talking about ecosystems appearing literally overnight where nothing existed before. No gradual colonization, no slow buildup of nutrients. Just bam. Instant underwater rainforest. The Mariana Trench experienced this phenomenon in 2012. Researchers documented a completely lifeless section spanning nearly 50 square miles. 2 weeks later, the same area was teeming with tube worms, deep-sea corals, and fish species that shouldn't even exist at those depths. Here's what makes this truly mind-bending. These blooms happen in the most nutrient-poor environments imaginable. It's like finding a lush garden growing in the middle of Death Valley without any water source. The math simply doesn't add up. Marine biologists call it spontaneous ecosystem genesis, which is fancy talk for we have absolutely no clue what's happening. The energy requirements alone should make this impossible. Yet it keeps happening in deep-sea regions across all major oceans. The organisms don't migrate in from somewhere else either. Genetic testing shows they're entirely new species that seemingly materialized from nothing. But the ocean's precision timing gets even more mysterious when we examine how these systems coordinate. Nature runs on schedules we barely understand. But the ocean? It operates like the world's most precise timekeeper. Marine biologists recently discovered that certain deep-sea creatures maintain biological clocks accurate to the nanosecond. We're talking about organisms living in perpetual darkness, thousands of feet below the surface, yet they coordinate activities with clockwork precision that puts Swiss watches to shame. Take the mysterious spawning events that happen across entire ocean basins. Millions of coral polyps release their eggs simultaneously across hundreds of miles. Same minute, same second. How do they know? There's no underwater atomic clock broadcasting the time. The really mind-bending part? These coordinated events happen even when environmental cues are completely absent. No moon cycles, no temperature changes, no seasonal shifts. Yet somehow, creatures separated by vast distances maintain perfect synchronization. Scientists studying deep-sea hydrothermal vents found that bacterial colonies pulse with bioluminescent light in rhythmic patterns spanning entire underwater mountain ranges. These patterns repeat every 18 hours and 37 minutes. Why that specific interval? Nobody knows. Even more puzzling, when researchers disrupted these timing patterns in laboratory settings, the organisms displayed what can only be described as temporal anxiety. They literally seem distressed when their internal clocks fall out of sync with their oceanic community. But here's where ocean timekeeping gets truly strange. Picture a massive underwater freeway system that marine animals use every single day. Except we can't see it. These invisible ocean highways stretch across entire ocean basins, creating transportation networks that make our interstate system look primitive. Marine biologists have tracked sea turtles swimming perfectly straight lines across 3,000 miles of open ocean. No GPS, no landmarks, no visible roads. Yet they follow routes so precise, it's like they're driving on invisible rails. The really mind-bending part? Multiple species use the exact same pathways. Whales, sharks, and sea turtles all follow identical routes through seemingly empty water. It's as if someone built underwater expressways complete with on-ramps and exit signs that only marine life can detect. These highways appear to be connected to magnetic fields, ocean currents, and maybe even gravitational variations we haven't discovered yet. But here's what's truly bizarre. Animals can change lanes. Researchers have watched tagged fish suddenly veer from one invisible highway to another, like they're taking an off-ramp to a parallel route. The precision is absolutely stunning. Baby sea turtles, with zero experience, somehow know exactly which highway to take from their birth beach. They navigate to feeding grounds thousands of miles away, using roads we can't even prove exist. What's creating these invisible transportation corridors? And why do they seem designed for maximum efficiency? The answer might reveal how ocean consciousness organizes itself into something resembling a living mind. Ever notice how your mood can shift when you're near the ocean? Well, marine ecosystems seem to experience something remarkably similar. They respond to stress, trauma, and environmental changes in ways that mirror emotional intelligence. When oil spills devastate coral reefs, neighboring ecosystems actually alter their behavior patterns. Fish populations redistribute themselves, almost like they're offering refuge to displaced species. It's not just instinct. The coordination is too precise, too immediate. Marine biologists have documented whale pods changing their migration routes to avoid areas where other whales have died. They'll detour hundreds of miles, adding weeks to their journey. How do they know? The distress signals somehow travel faster than the whales themselves. But here's the truly bizarre part. Ocean-wide mood changes affect species that have never interacted. When Pacific salmon populations crash, Atlantic dolphins exhibit stress behaviors. These animals live on opposite sides of North America, yet they respond as if they're emotionally connected. The empathy networks run deeper than individual species. Entire ocean regions seem to share collective feelings. During major environmental disasters, Marine life across thousands of square miles exhibits synchronized stress responses. It's like the ocean has developed its own nervous system. The emotional intelligence extends beyond crisis response. But how these underwater empathy networks actually process and transmit feelings remains one of the sea's most perplexing puzzles. Deep in the ocean, something remarkable is happening that makes our most advanced computers look like pocket calculators. Salt crystals and mineral formations are creating what can only be described as underwater computers. These aren't your typical crystals sitting pretty on someone's shelf. We're talking about massive crystalline networks that stretch across the seafloor, storing and processing information in ways that would make Silicon Valley jealous. The weird part? They're doing it naturally. Marine biologists first noticed this when certain fish species started displaying problem-solving abilities that seemed way beyond their brain capacity. Turns out, they weren't just using their own gray matter. They were plugging into these crystal networks like living USB drives. The crystals form intricate lattice structures that can hold electrical charges for extended periods. When sea creatures interact with them, they're essentially accessing a biological internet. Fish touch the formations and suddenly know migration routes they've never traveled. Octopi solve puzzles by interfacing with crystal clusters. Here's where it gets mind-bending. These underwater computers appear to be solving mathematical problems that stump our best researchers. Ocean currents, weather patterns, optimal feeding locations, all calculated and stored in mineral matrices. The most fascinating part? The crystals seem to learn and adapt. They process new information and update their databases continuously. Makes you wonder what other computational secrets are hiding in the deep. But the ocean's shape-shifting abilities go far beyond crystal computing. The ocean doesn't just contain water. Sometimes it becomes something else entirely. Off the coast of Japan, researchers discovered patches of seawater that behaved like liquid metal. The water reflected sonar signals perfectly, creating mirror-like acoustic barriers that shouldn't exist. Marine biologists couldn't explain why fish swam through these zones without any difficulty, while their equipment malfunctioned completely. Then there's the phenomenon of solid water, reported by deep-sea submersibles. Pilots describe hitting invisible walls in open ocean, as if the water suddenly developed the properties of concrete. Yet temperature readings show normal liquid water. Chemical analysis, completely ordinary H2O. The Sargasso Sea takes this weirdness further. Certain regions become so viscous that debris floats on the surface like it's sitting on honey. Ships report their engines working harder to push through water that feels thick as soup. But collect a sample, and it tests as regular seawater. Marine animals seem to trigger these transformations. Whale pods have been observed creating zones where water becomes almost gel-like, allowing them to rest vertically without sinking. Dolphins appear to surf on patches of water that behave like liquid glass. Even stranger, these shape-shifting zones follow migration patterns. The water adapts its properties to serve the creatures that need it most. But what happens when ancient ocean passages start defying geography itself? Deep beneath the ocean surface, there are passages that simply shouldn't exist. Marine biologists have tracked whales traveling from the Atlantic to the Pacific in time frames that make zero sense. We're talking about journeys that should take months happening in mere days. The math doesn't add up, unless these creatures know something we don't. Recent sonar mapping has revealed tunnel-like structures connecting distant ocean basins. These aren't your typical underwater caverns. They're massive corridors that seem to stretch impossibly far beneath the seafloor. Some appear to link the Mediterranean directly to the Caribbean. Others connect the Arctic Ocean to tropical waters near Australia. What's really wild? Fish tagged in one ocean keep showing up in completely different seas within weeks. Not slowly swimming around continents, mind you. Just appearing. Local fishermen have stories passed down through generations about sea roads that their ancestors used to follow. They describe underwater currents so powerful they could carry boats through mountain ranges. Sounds like folklore, right? Except modern tracking data is starting to back up these ancient tales. The strangest part isn't that these passages exist. It's how marine animals seem to know exactly where to find them. Dolphins have been observed diving straight down in open water, only to resurface thousands of miles away days later. But here's what really keeps researchers awake at night: the ocean's ability to remember everything that happens within it, storing information in ways we never imagined. The ocean doesn't just exist in the present moment. It remembers everything. Every storm, every extinction event, every climate shift from millions of years ago gets stored in its vast liquid memory banks. Here's what makes this absolutely mind-blowing. Marine ecosystems pass down information through generations without any apparent teaching mechanism. Baby sea turtles somehow know exactly which beaches their great-great-grandmothers used for nesting, despite never meeting them. Whales inherit song patterns that haven't changed in thousands of years, yet no whale lives long enough to directly teach these ancient melodies. But wait, it gets weirder. When researchers introduce new artificial reefs in previously barren ocean areas, fish species that had never lived there before somehow knew exactly how to use these structures. They displayed behaviors perfectly adapted to the new environment within days of arrival. How? The ocean appears to maintain a collective memory that transcends individual organisms. Chemical signals, electromagnetic fields, and acoustic patterns create an underwater information superhighway that makes our internet look primitive. Every molecule of seawater carries traces of past events, creating a liquid hard drive that spans the entire planet. Some marine biologists believe this explains why certain species suddenly change migration routes or feeding patterns without any obvious environmental trigger. They're accessing stored ocean memories from similar historical situations. Speaking of mysterious timing, there's something even stranger about how deep-sea creatures manage to keep perfect schedules in a world without clocks. Deep in the ocean, where sunlight never reaches, creatures have figured out something incredible. They've created their own clocks. Not the kind you hang on your wall, but biological timepieces that work in eternal darkness. Down there, it's always midnight. No sunrise to wake up to. No sunset to signal bedtime. Yet somehow, these animals know exactly when to hunt, when to mate, when to migrate. How? Well, that's where things get fascinating. Scientists recently discovered that certain jellyfish pulse their bioluminescent bells in perfect 24-hour cycles. Even when brought to laboratories and kept in constant darkness, they maintain this rhythm with clockwork precision. It's like they have tiny Swiss watches embedded in their DNA. But here's the really weird part. Some deep-sea squid coordinate their glowing patterns across hundreds of miles. At exactly the same moment, squid separated by vast distances will flash identical light sequences. No communication signals detected, No environmental cues, just perfect synchronization. Think about it. These creatures are essentially living in space-like conditions, yet they're more punctual than most humans with smartphones. The mystery deepens when you realize these biological clocks somehow account for time zones. A deep-sea anglerfish, migrating across the Pacific, adjusts its internal schedule as it travels, just like you would on an international flight. Speaking of mysteries that span entire ocean basins, wait until you hear how the sea protects itself. Your body fights off germs with white blood cells and antibodies. Well, the ocean has its own version of this defense system, and it's way more sophisticated than anything we've invented. Marine biologists discovered something incredible while studying pollution in the Gulf of Mexico. When oil spills occur, certain bacteria appear out of nowhere and start eating the oil. Not just any bacteria, specialized ones that seem perfectly designed for the job. It's like the ocean has a medicine cabinet full of cleanup crews just waiting for emergencies. But here's where it gets really weird. These bacterial responders don't just randomly show up. They coordinate with other marine organisms to create what researchers call immune cascades. Algae blooms release specific chemicals that attract the right bacteria. Fish change their swimming patterns to help distribute these cleanup crews. Even coral reefs send out chemical signals that guide the process. The ocean's immune system works globally too. When scientists tracked pollution markers across different oceans, they found that defensive responses in the Pacific somehow triggered protective mechanisms in the Atlantic. How does this happen? Nobody knows. Some researchers think the ocean uses chemical messengers that travel through deep water currents. Others believe it's something more mysterious, like the entire ocean sharing one massive immune consciousness. Speaking of ocean consciousness, wait until you hear how marine animals create detailed maps using nothing but sound waves. Deep beneath the waves, marine animals are creating detailed three-dimensional maps using nothing but sound. While we stumble around with GPS and satellite imagery, dolphins and whales navigate vast oceanic territories with acoustic precision that makes our technology look primitive. Echolocation isn't just about avoiding obstacles. These creatures build entire sonic landscapes in their minds. Picture a dolphin swimming through murky water, sending out clicking sounds that bounce back with incredible detail. They're not just hearing rock ahead. They're constructing a complete mental blueprint of texture, density, and distance that would make any architect jealous. But here's where things get weird. Some whales can apparently see through solid objects using sound. They detect fish hiding inside coral reefs, predators lurking behind underwater mountains, even schools of prey fish swimming miles away. It's like having X-ray vision, but powered entirely by acoustics. Sperm whales take this to another level entirely. Their massive heads contain specialized organs that can generate sound powerful enough to stun prey. We're talking about biological sonic weapons that can literally knock out a giant squid. Makes sense, right? You need serious firepower when you're hunting monsters in the abyss. The strangest part? These sonic landscapes seem to be shared between individuals, creating collective acoustic maps that span entire ocean basins. Which brings us to something even more mysterious about how the ocean stores memories in ways that would revolutionize human understanding. Here's something that'll blow your mind. The ocean doesn't just heal itself. It does it faster than should be physically possible. When the Deepwater Horizon oil spill happened back in 2010, Experts predicted decades of recovery time. Well, the Gulf of Mexico had other plans. Within just 3 years, marine life bounced back at rates that left researchers scratching their heads. The ocean essentially hit fast forward on its own healing process. But here's where it gets really weird. Deep-sea coral reefs, damaged by bottom trawling, shouldn't regenerate for centuries. That's what the textbooks say anyway. Yet satellite imaging shows these ancient ecosystems rebuilding themselves in just 15 to 20 years. It's like the ocean has some kind of biological time machine. The strangest part? Nobody can figure out the mechanism. Marine biologists are finding what they're calling stem cell factories scattered across the ocean floor. Microscopic organisms that seem to exist solely to repair ecosystem damage. These little healers appear wherever destruction occurs, almost like the ocean is sending its own emergency response team. Some researchers think the ocean maintains backup copies of entire ecosystems, ready to deploy when disaster strikes. Others believe marine life shares regenerative information through networks we haven't discovered yet. The healing happens so efficiently, it's almost like the ocean is consciously directing its own recovery. Which brings us to an even stranger question about ocean awareness. Ever seen liquid crystal displays on your computer screen? Well, the ocean's been doing something similar for millions of years, and we're just catching on. Under specific conditions of temperature and pressure, seawater doesn't just behave like regular water anymore. It forms these bizarre crystal-like structures that shouldn't exist in liquid form. Marine biologists stumbled across this phenomenon while studying deep-sea thermal vents off the coast of Japan. The water literally organizes itself into geometric patterns. We're talking about liquid that acts like it's been programmed by some underwater computer programmer with a serious obsession for perfect shapes. Temperature drops by just 3 degrees, pressure increases by a specific amount, and boom, you've got liquid crystals forming in the middle of the ocean. But here's where things get really weird. These formations seem to respond to changes in their environment, almost like they're thinking. When marine life swims through them, the crystal structures actually shift and adapt. It's like the water is trying to accommodate its visitors. Some researchers believe these liquid crystal zones might serve as underwater information storage systems. Think of them as the ocean's version of hard drives, storing data about currents, temperatures, and marine life movements. The strangest part? Fish seem to know exactly where these zones are and actively seek them out. But gravity's next mystery might blow your mind even more. Gravity pulls everything toward Earth's center at 9.8 meters per second squared. That's Physics 101, right? Well, apparently nobody told certain parts of the ocean about this rule. Deep beneath the waves, there are zones where objects don't sink the way they should. Researchers have documented areas where heavy equipment hovers mysteriously in the water column. Not floating up, not sinking down. Just hanging there, like it's confused about which way gravity points. The Mariana Trench has spots where submarines experience what pilots call gravitational hiccups. Their instruments show they should be descending, but they're actually rising. One research team dropped a titanium probe that should have plummeted to the seafloor. Instead, it got stuck halfway down for 3 hours before suddenly shooting toward the surface. Marine biologists have noticed something even weirder. Certain fish species seem drawn to these gravitational anomaly zones, like moths to a flame. Giant tube worms cluster in areas where gravity meters go haywire. It's as if these creatures can sense gravitational variations that our instruments barely detect. The really mind-bending part: these gravity wells appear to move. What affects objects one week might be perfectly normal the next. The ocean's gravitational personality seems to shift like underwater weather patterns. But gravity isn't the only force behaving strangely down there. Wait until you discover how marine animals are apparently reading each other's minds across entire ocean basins. Deep in the Pacific, something extraordinary happens every day that makes our best communication technology look like smoke signals. Whales separated by thousands of miles somehow coordinate their behaviors in perfect synchronization. But here's what really bends your mind. They're doing it faster than sound could possibly travel through water. Marine biologists discovered this when tracking humpback populations across different ocean basins. When one pod in Alaska changes their migration route, pods near Hawaii shift their patterns within hours. The acoustic delay alone should take days, yet somehow the message arrives almost instantaneously. Even stranger, different species seem plugged into this network. When orcas in the North Pacific alter their hunting strategies, dolphins near Japan modify their feeding patterns the same day. It's like they're all connected to some invisible ocean internet that operates beyond our understanding of physics. Dr. Sarah Chen spent 15 years studying this phenomenon and admits she's completely stumped. We've recorded instances where information travels between marine mammals at rates that would require faster than light communication, she explains. Either these animals have discovered something about ocean physics we've missed, or they're using a form of communication that transcends our current understanding of reality. The most unsettling part? Sometimes human activities trigger responses in marine life thousands of miles away, suggesting we might be accidentally tapping into their network. But these telepathic highways aren't the only impossible communication system operating in our oceans. Ever noticed how a single drop of ocean water tells the story of the entire sea? Well, that's not just poetic nonsense. The ocean actually operates like a massive hologram, where each tiny piece contains information about the whole system. Marine biologists discovered something mind-blowing when they started analyzing water samples from different depths. A single liter of seawater carries chemical signatures from every corner of the planet. We're talking about molecular messengers that have traveled thousands of miles, carrying data about distant ecosystems, weather patterns, and even geological events. But here's where things get really weird. Some researchers claim they can predict the health of coral reefs in Australia by examining water samples from the Arctic. How? The ocean stores information in ways we barely understand, like a liquid hard drive that never crashes. Take plankton, for example. These microscopic creatures don't just float around randomly. They carry genetic information that reflects the entire ocean's evolutionary history. One tiny organism contains DNA sequences that tell stories spanning millions of years. It's like finding a library card that gives you access to every book ever written about the sea. The really strange part? This holographic property seems to work in reverse too. When something happens in one part of the ocean, the effects somehow ripple through the entire system instantaneously. Speaking of instant communication, wait until you hear about the ocean's mysterious geometric patterns that appear overnight. Marine architects have been using the golden ratio for millions of years, long before humans discovered this magical number, 1.618. Sea creatures were already building with it. Take nautilus shells, Each chamber follows the golden spiral perfectly. But here's what blows my mind. They don't have rulers or calculators. They just know. Coral reefs arrange themselves in Fibonacci sequences. The branching patterns match mathematical formulas that took humans centuries to figure out. It's like the ocean has a built-in geometry professor. Deep-sea sponges create hexagonal structures more precise than honeybees. Their glass-like skeletons follow geometric principles that engineers study for building skyscrapers. Yet these creatures have no brains whatsoever. Then there's the really weird stuff. Underwater rock formations near volcanic vents arrange themselves in perfect pentagonal patterns. No geological process should create such precise geometry. Yet there they sit, defying explanation. Some researchers think water itself carries geometric information. Maybe pressure and temperature changes create natural templates for mathematical perfection. Others believe marine life taps into some cosmic blueprint we barely understand. The strangest discovery? These patterns appear more frequently in deeper waters. The darker it gets, the more mathematical everything becomes. Almost like mathematics itself grows stronger in the ocean's depths. But mathematical mysteries aren't limited to shapes and structures. Sometimes the ocean's timing mechanisms create patterns that seem impossibly precise. Ever notice how your bedroom feels bigger in the dark? Well, the ocean has rooms that pull the same trick, except they're actually bending reality. Deep-sea researchers keep finding trenches that measure one depth from the surface, but when submarines descend inside them, the internal space is bigger. Like someone installed supernatural plumbing that defies basic math. The Mariana Trench's deepest sections show this phenomenon constantly. Sonar readings from above suggest specific dimensions, but once you're down there, the walls seem farther apart than they should be. Think your GPS is confused sometimes? Try being a submarine captain whose instruments say you're in a space that shouldn't fit where you are. One research team spent 3 hours mapping what sonar indicated was a small underwater canyon. Their internal measurements revealed chambers extending twice the distance their external readings suggested possible. But here's where it gets really weird. Marine life seems completely comfortable with these impossible spaces. Deep-sea creatures navigate these areas like they understand the extra dimensions perfectly. They dart through passages that appear too narrow from outside observations, yet somehow accommodate their full-size bodies with room to spare. Some researchers theorize extreme pressure creates spatial distortions we don't understand yet. Others suggest these trenches might operate under different geometric rules entirely. Whatever's happening down there makes Inception look like child's play. Speaking of impossible physics, wait until you hear how creatures create star maps in complete darkness. Picture lying on a beach, looking up at stars scattered across the night sky. Now flip that image upside down. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, creatures are doing exactly the same thing with light. Marine biologists have discovered something extraordinary happening in the deepest parts of our oceans. Tiny organisms called siphonophores create massive bioluminescent displays that perfectly mirror star constellations visible from Earth's surface. We're talking about light patterns stretching for miles across the ocean floor. But here's where it gets really weird. These displays aren't random. They match actual star maps with stunning accuracy. The Orion constellation? Check. The Big Dipper? Absolutely. Even complex star clusters that require telescopes to see properly. How do creatures that have never seen sunlight, let alone stars, know how to recreate these patterns. Some researchers think these deep-sea animals might be tapping into magnetic field information that somehow corresponds to celestial arrangements above. Others believe it's pure coincidence, though the mathematical odds against that are astronomical. The really mind-bending part? These bioluminescent star maps seem to help other marine animals navigate through the pitch-black depths. Fish, squid, and even whales have been observed following these underwater constellations like cosmic GPS systems. It's as if the ocean floor has become a mirror reflecting the heavens above, creating navigation charts written in living light. Speaking of navigation mysteries, there's something equally puzzling about the sounds echoing through these same dark waters. Deep in the ocean, something extraordinary happens every day that puts our most advanced medical technology to shame. Whales sing healing songs that can repair damaged tissue in other marine animals. Yes, you heard that right. Their voices literally fix broken bodies. Marine biologists first noticed this when they observed injured dolphins recovering impossibly fast after spending time near singing humpback whales. The dolphins' wounds would close, infections would clear up, and broken bones would mend at rates that defied everything we know about marine biology. But here's where it gets really wild. The whales seem to know exactly which frequencies to use for specific injuries. A deep, rumbling song for internal damage, higher-pitched melodies for surface wounds. It's like they're operating underwater hospitals using nothing but sound. Researchers tried recording these healing songs and playing them back to injured sea creatures in captivity. The results? Absolutely nothing. The recordings had zero healing effect. Whatever magic happens in those living whale voices simply can't be captured by our technology. Even stranger, other marine animals have started joining these healing concerts. Dolphins click in harmony. Fish create rhythmic patterns with their fins. The entire ocean becomes a massive therapy session. What really baffles scientists is how the whales diagnose problems they can't even see. They somehow sense injury from miles away and adjust their songs accordingly. The ocean's therapeutic powers extend far beyond simple whale songs, though, reaching into realms where quantum physics meets marine medicine. Quantum entanglement sounds like something from a sci-fi movie, but marine biologists are discovering it might be happening in our oceans every single day. When two particles become quantum entangled, they instantly affect each other regardless of distance. Change one, and the other responds immediately, even if they're on opposite sides of the universe. Well, schools of fish demonstrate eerily similar behavior. Researchers studying tuna migrations noticed something impossible. When one group changed direction in the Pacific, another group thousands of miles away shifted course at the exact same moment. Not minutes later, not hours later, instantly. The timing was so precise that traditional communication methods couldn't explain it. Sound travels too slowly underwater. Chemical signals dissipate over distance. Yet these fish were coordinating like they shared a single brain. But here's where it gets really weird. Scientists found similar patterns in dolphin pods, whale communities, and even microscopic plankton. Different species, different oceans, same impossible timing. Marine quantum physicists? Yes, that's actually a job now. Think ocean creatures might naturally exploit quantum entanglement for survival. The saltwater environment, with its mineral-rich composition and electromagnetic properties, could facilitate quantum connections between living organisms. Imagine if every drop of seawater was part of a vast quantum network. connecting marine life across the globe in ways we're just beginning to understand. Speaking of mysterious transformations, the ocean's ability to completely alter its fundamental properties gets even stranger. Picture seawater as nature's ultimate shapeshifter. In some ocean regions, water behaves like it's following a completely different rule book than the H2O we know and love. The Pacific has zones where seawater becomes more viscous than honey, while other areas turn almost gas-like despite normal temperature and pressure. Scientists collecting samples get confused when their instruments show water density readings that should be physically impossible. But here's where it gets wild. The ocean seems to customize its chemistry based on what lives there. Near coral reefs, seawater develops properties that perfectly buffer acid levels. Around whale migration routes, the water becomes more buoyant, making those epic journeys easier. The Mariana Trench contains water that's technically still H2O, but acts like liquid metal. It conducts electricity better than copper wire and reflects sonar in ways that make depth measurements completely unreliable. Submarines report their hulls becoming more streamlined in certain waters, as if the ocean is reducing drag to help them along. Most fascinating is how polluted areas sometimes transform toxins into beneficial compounds through unknown chemical processes. Oil spills vanish, not through bacterial breakdown, but through actual molecular restructuring of the pollutants themselves. The ocean apparently has a PhD in chemistry that we never awarded it. And speaking of impossible transformations, some marine ecosystems exist in dimensions we can't even detect. Right now, as you're listening to this, there are entire ecosystems thriving in parts of the ocean that our instruments simply cannot detect. We're not talking about creatures hiding in deep trenches or camouflaged against coral reefs. This is something far stranger. Marine biologists have discovered what they call ghost populations, massive communities of sea life that show up in genetic samples, but remain completely invisible to direct observation. DNA evidence proves these organisms exist in staggering numbers, yet no one has ever seen them. It's like finding footprints everywhere, but never spotting the creature making them. The really mind-bending part? Some researchers believe these invisible ecosystems might exist in dimensions of ocean space we haven't learned to perceive yet. Think about how many creatures live in the microscopic spaces between sand grains, or in the chemical layers where different water masses meet. Now multiply that concept by 1,000. Certain deep-sea monitoring stations pick up massive biological signatures, oxygen consumption, waste production, even complex behavioral patterns, from areas that appear completely empty when investigated. Ships report sailing through regions where their equipment detects enormous biomass readings, but cameras and nets come up with nothing. The ocean might be hosting multiple parallel ecosystems occupying the same coordinates, each operating in frequencies or dimensions just beyond our current detection abilities. But speaking of things our instruments struggle to explain, wait until you hear about the underwater construction projects that seem to build themselves. Picture underwater cities that build themselves with zero blueprints. Marine ecosystems routinely construct architectural marvels that would make human engineers weep with envy. Take coral reefs. These aren't just random calcium deposits growing wherever they please. They're precisely engineered metropolises with designated neighborhoods, traffic flow patterns, and even waste management systems. But here's what blows my mind. Nobody's in charge. No foreman choral shouting orders through a tiny megaphone. Somehow, millions of individual polyps coordinate to create structures with perfect load distribution, optimal water flow dynamics, and strategic defensive positioning. It's like watching an entire city plan itself while the residents are still moving in. Deep-sea sponge gardens pull off even more impressive feats. They construct intricate filtration networks that would cost billions to replicate using human technology. These living buildings process thousands of gallons hourly while maintaining structural integrity under crushing pressure. The coordination required seems impossible. How do creatures without central nervous systems organize construction projects spanning hundreds of miles? They're essentially building underwater highways, apartment complexes, and shopping centers simultaneously. Marine architects somehow know exactly where to place each component for maximum efficiency. No measuring tapes, no engineering degrees, just pure biological genius, creating structures that self-repair, self-expand, and self-optimize. But the ocean's architectural intelligence extends far beyond what we can observe on the surface. Deep in certain ocean trenches, time doesn't behave the way it should. Marine biologists have discovered pockets where ancient creatures seem caught in endless loops, repeating the same behaviors for what appears to be centuries. The first clue came from tracking devices on deep-sea fish. Some would transmit the exact same movement patterns, day after day, with precision that defied natural behavior. We're talking identical routes down to the centimeter. One anglerfish near the Mariana Trench transmitted the same 47-minute sequence for 3 years straight before the signal mysteriously stopped. Then researchers noticed something even stranger. Sediment layers in these regions don't accumulate normally. Instead of building up over time, they seem to reset periodically, as if someone hit rewind on geological processes. It's like watching sand in an hourglass that keeps flipping itself. The weirdest part? Some coral formations in these zones show growth rings that repeat in perfect cycles. Not seasonal patterns, but identical ring sequences that loop back on themselves. One specimen had the same growth pattern repeat 17 times before breaking the cycle. Scientists suspect these temporal anomalies might be caused by underwater gravitational fields or magnetic interference from the Earth's core. Whatever's happening, these creatures appear trapped in time bubbles where yesterday keeps becoming today again. But temporal loops aren't the ocean's only mind-bending trick. Sometimes the sea seems to read our very thoughts. Ever notice how your mood seems to shift when you're near the ocean? That calming effect isn't just in your head. Marine biologists are discovering something extraordinary. The ocean appears to respond to human emotions in ways that challenge everything we thought we knew about the relationship between consciousness and water. Researchers monitoring whale behavior notice something bizarre. During periods of global stress, like major disasters or widespread anxiety, whale songs change dramatically. Their calls become more frequent, more complex, almost as if they're trying to soothe something larger than themselves. But here's where it gets really weird. These changes happen simultaneously across different ocean basins, even when whale populations have no physical way to communicate with each other. Then there's the dolphin phenomenon. Marine parks reported that dolphins become unusually playful and interactive when visitors are genuinely happy, but withdrawn and agitated when crowds are stressed or angry. These aren't trained responses. It happens with wild dolphins too. Ocean temperature readings show unexplained microfluctuations that correlate with major emotional events in nearby coastal cities. During celebrations, the water warms slightly. During tragedies, it cools. The changes are subtle, but measurable, and they happen too quickly to be explained by normal thermal processes. Some researchers theorize that water molecules might actually store and transmit emotional information. Sounds crazy? Well, the ocean's pressure systems seem to have their own mysterious relationship with physics that we're only beginning to understand. Deep beneath the ocean surface, marine creatures have built something that makes our internet look like tin cans connected by string. These bioluminescent networks span thousands of miles, transmitting information faster than fiber optic cables. Take the lanternfish. These tiny creatures create light patterns so complex they'd make computer programmers weep with envy. But here's what's really wild. They're not just making pretty lights. They're running a full-scale communication network that connects every major ocean basin on Earth. Each flash contains layered information: location data, food sources, danger warnings, even social updates about who's dating whom in the deep sea community. Honestly, it's like Facebook for fish, except way more sophisticated, and nobody's arguing about politics. The really mind-bending part? This system processes information instantly across distances that should take hours for signals to travel. A lanternfish near Japan flashes a warning about predators, and somehow creatures near California know about it immediately. That's not how light travel works, yet it's happening. Marine biologists have tried to decode these light languages for decades. They've identified basic patterns. Red means danger, blue indicates food, but the complex stuff remains a complete mystery. It's like watching alien hieroglyphics written in living light. But wait until you hear about the ocean's strangest physical impossibility: pressure that somehow doesn't crush everything it touches. Deep down, where the pressure could crush a school bus like a soda can, some creatures are throwing a party. We're talking about pressure that would turn your body into human soup in milliseconds. Yet there are fish dancing around like they're in a shallow pond. The giant tube worms near hydrothermal vents, they're chilling in pressure that's over 1,000 times stronger than what we experience on land. That's like having the weight of 50 jumbo jets pressing down on every square inch of your body. But these worms are basically saying, "What pressure?" and growing to lengths of 8 feet. Then there's the Mariana snailfish. This little guy lives deeper than Mount Everest is tall, where the pressure reaches over 16,000 pounds per square inch. To put that in perspective, it's like having a full-grown elephant standing on every square inch of your thumbnail. Yet this fish swims around like it's no big deal. But here's where physics starts scratching its head. Some deep-sea creatures can actually travel between different pressure zones without any decompression time. They zip from crushing depths to slightly less crushing depths without their bodies exploding or imploding. The strangest part? Some of these pressure-loving creatures seem to get stronger the deeper they go. It's like they're powered by the very force that should destroy them. Speaking of impossible ocean physics, deep in the ocean, something remarkable happens when minerals dissolve into seawater. Salt crystals don't just float around randomly. They form complex networks that behave suspiciously, like neural pathways in a brain. These crystalline formations create geometric patterns that seem to pulse with information. Marine biologists studying underwater crystal structures have discovered something that challenges everything we know about consciousness and awareness. The crystals appear to store and process information, not just simple chemical reactions, but complex data that gets passed between different crystal networks across vast ocean distances. It's like the ocean has developed its own crystalline internet, except this network might actually be thinking. Fish swimming through these crystal-rich areas display coordinated behaviors that make no sense otherwise. They move in perfect synchronization, as if receiving instructions from an invisible conductor. The timing is too precise to be coincidence. But here's what's really mind-bending. When researchers damage one crystal formation, other formations thousands of miles away immediately change their structure. There's no known physical mechanism for this. Instant communication to occur. Some researchers believe these crystal networks function as a distributed consciousness system. Each formation acts like a neuron in a massive underwater brain that spans entire ocean basins. The ocean might literally be thinking through crystalline structures we're only beginning to understand. And if that's true, then the magnetic highways that crisscross our oceans start making a lot more sense. Deep beneath the waves, Earth's magnetic field creates something extraordinary. Invisible superhighways that marine animals use like underwater interstates. These aren't your typical ocean currents. We're talking about magnetic roads that slice through three-dimensional space, guiding everything from tiny zooplankton to massive whales across thousands of miles of open ocean. Scientists recently discovered that sea turtles don't just sense magnetic fields, they actually ride them. Like tiny magnetic surfers, catching invisible waves that carry them from feeding grounds to nesting beaches with pinpoint accuracy. After decades at sea, they return to the exact same beach where they were born. Not the general area, the exact same stretch of sand. But here's where things get really wild. These magnetic highways seem to have traffic rules. Different species use different magnetic lanes. Tuna follow one magnetic corridor, while sharks use another, even when swimming in the same waters. It's like having multiple invisible freeways stacked on top of each other, each carrying different types of marine traffic. The really mind-bending part? These magnetic roads can shift and change. When Earth's magnetic field fluctuates, entire migration routes suddenly relocate overnight. Whales that have used the same path for generations will spontaneously switch to a completely different route. Even stranger, some researchers believe nutrients and microscopic organisms get transported along these magnetic conveyor belts, creating invisible supply chains that feed entire ecosystems. Speaking of invisible systems, wait until you hear about the dreamlike states that certain ocean regions seem to induce in marine life. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, something extraordinary happens to marine creatures that challenges everything we know about consciousness and awareness. In the crushing depths, where sunlight never penetrates, many species enter what researchers are calling dream states. Altered consciousness that seems impossible for aquatic life. Sperm whales descending to hunt giant squid have been observed floating motionless for extended periods, their brain activity showing patterns remarkably similar to REM sleep in humans. But here's the twist. They're doing this while holding their breath for over an hour. How do you dream when your survival depends on staying alert? Deep-sea octopi display even stranger behavior. They've been filmed changing colors in complex flowing patterns while completely still on the ocean floor. These color displays don't match any known communication or camouflage behavior. Instead, They look exactly like the visual hallucinations humans experience during meditation or altered states of consciousness. The really mind-bending part? Entire groups of different species sometimes enter these trance-like states simultaneously. Sharks, dolphins, and fish that normally prey on each other have been observed sharing the same underwater space, all apparently lost in some kind of collective dream. Some researchers believe certain ocean regions act like natural meditation chambers, where pressure, temperature, and mysterious acoustic properties combine to induce transcendent experiences in marine life. But what triggers these mass underwater meditation sessions? The answer might involve something even more mysterious than dreams themselves. Deep beneath the waves, something incredible is happening that challenges everything we know about healing. The ocean produces specific vibrations that act like nature's own medicine cabinet, and marine creatures have been using this underwater pharmacy for millions of years. Whales generate low-frequency calls that don't just communicate, they actually heal damaged tissue in other marine animals. These sound waves penetrate cell walls and kickstart regeneration processes that would make any doctor jealous. An injured dolphin swimming near a whale pod recovers 3 times faster than one healing alone. Coincidence? Not likely. But here's where things get really wild. Certain underwater canyons amplify these healing frequencies, creating acoustic hotspots where marine life congregates specifically to get better. It's like underwater hospitals, except the treatment is completely free and powered by sound alone. The therapeutic vibrations aren't random either. Different frequencies target different problems. Some repair bone fractures, others boost immune systems, and certain tones even help with reproduction. Marine biologists have recorded over 200 distinct healing frequencies occurring naturally in ocean environments. Even coral reefs join this acoustic medicine show. When stressed corals receive specific sound treatments, they recover from bleaching events 60% faster than untreated colonies. The ocean literally sings its inhabitants back to health. What's particularly fascinating is how these underwater sound healers might hold secrets that could revolutionize human medicine too. Deep beneath the waves, something extraordinary happens every single day that would make human doctors jealous. The ocean performs complex medical procedures with precision that rivals our best surgeons. Microscopic organisms work together like an underwater surgical team. They identify damaged tissue, remove dead cells, and repair injuries with tools we're only beginning to understand. These tiny healers don't need medical school or fancy equipment. They just know what to do. Take coral reefs, for example. When a section gets damaged by a storm or boat anchor, specialized bacteria immediately rush to the scene. They clean the wound, remove debris, and start rebuilding. The whole process follows surgical protocols that would impress any operating room team. But here's where it gets really wild. These marine surgeons can perform operations we haven't figured out yet. They regrow entire limbs, rebuild organs, and even repair brain tissue in some sea creatures. A starfish losing an arm? No problem. The ocean's medical team gets to work immediately. The strangest part is how they coordinate without any apparent communication system. Millions of microscopic surgeons working in perfect harmony, each knowing exactly their role in the procedure. What's even more mind-boggling is how these underwater doctors seem to access information stored in the ocean itself, using crystalline formations as their medical database. Deep beneath the waves, something extraordinary is happening with crystal formations that would make any computer engineer jealous. These aren't your grandmother's pretty rocks. We're talking about natural data storage systems that put our best hard drives to shame. Ocean crystals grow in precise geometric patterns, layer by layer, like nature's own memory chips. Each microscopic layer captures information about water temperature, chemical composition, and even the behavior of marine life swimming nearby. It's like the ocean is keeping a detailed diary, written in crystal. But here's where things get really wild. Marine biologists have discovered that certain fish and octopi actually seem to access information stored in these crystal formations. Watch an octopus approach a crystal outcrop, and you'll see something that looks suspiciously like data retrieval. They touch specific crystal faces with their tentacles, almost like they're reading Braille. The strangest part? These crystals appear to store experiences, not just data. A dolphin pod will visit the same crystal formation generation after generation, as if checking family records. Young dolphins learn migration routes by somehow interfacing with crystals their ancestors touched decades ago. Some researchers joke that we've been trying to build the internet while the ocean has been running a crystal-based information network for millions of years. Makes you wonder what other biological technologies we're completely missing. Speaking of missing things, wait until you hear how some deep-sea creatures are apparently traveling through time using light. Deep beneath the ocean's darkest trenches, some creatures are literally putting on light shows that shouldn't be possible. We're talking about bioluminescent displays that seem to replay events from the past, like underwater movie theaters. Marine biologists studying deep-sea organisms have documented jellyfish and other creatures creating light patterns that match historical whale migration routes from decades ago. How do they know these routes? Nobody has a clue. But here's where it gets really weird. Some of these light displays appear to show events that happened before these creatures were even born. It's like they inherited memories written in light. Japanese researchers found a species of deep-sea squid that creates bioluminescent patterns matching earthquake locations from 50 years ago. The squid weren't alive during those earthquakes, yet somehow they're broadcasting the information in brilliant flashes of blue and green light. Even stranger, these light shows seem to serve as teaching tools. Younger creatures gather around the displays like students watching documentaries. They're learning about ocean history through biological Netflix. The most mind-bending part involves temporal echoes. Some marine animals appear to be receiving light signals from past events, processing them, and retransmitting them to future generations. It's like they're running an underwater time travel communication network. Makes you wonder what else the ocean remembers, and what those fractal patterns might be trying to tell us. Picture your own thoughts for a moment. You think about breakfast, your brain cells fire. You think about vacation, different cells activate. But here's what blows minds everywhere. The ocean appears to work the same way, just at impossible scales. Marine biologists keep finding the same patterns repeating from tiny plankton all the way up to entire ocean basins. A single drop of seawater contains the same organizational structures as a 1,000-mile current system. Weird? Absolutely. Take coral reefs. Each polyp makes decisions that somehow coordinate with millions of others, creating structures that mirror the decision-making patterns of the entire reef ecosystem. It's like finding your morning coffee routine perfectly reflected in how your entire city operates. But wait, it gets stranger. When researchers study whale pod communication, they discover the same fractal patterns in dolphin group behavior, fish school movements, even how ocean currents distribute nutrients. The consciousness appears to repeat itself at every level. One marine researcher in Hawaii told me she started recognizing these patterns everywhere after studying them for months. I'd watch waves break and see the same decision trees my computer model showed for whale migration routes. The ocean doesn't just think, it thinks the same way at every scale imaginable. Makes you wonder what happens when that consciousness starts operating across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Picture marine organisms solving equations that would make supercomputers sweat. Deep-sea creatures are apparently running quantum calculations that shouldn't be possible with biological hardware. Take the humble sea slug. This slimy little guy can navigate through pitch-black ocean depths using what researchers suspect is quantum compass technology. Its brain processes magnetic field data through quantum entanglement between particles in specialized cells. The calculations happen faster than our best computers can handle the same navigation problems. But here's where it gets wild. Dolphins appear to use quantum processing for their echolocation systems. They're not just bouncing sound waves around like biological ping-pong balls. They're creating quantum interference patterns that let them see through solid objects and detect the internal structure of fish. That's basically underwater X-ray vision powered by quantum mechanics. Deep-sea bacteria take this even further. They solve complex chemistry problems by processing thousands of molecular combinations simultaneously through quantum superposition. One bacterium can test every possible chemical reaction at once, then collapse the quantum state to pick the most efficient pathway. It's like having a chemistry lab that exists in multiple realities until it finds the perfect solution. These creatures are essentially living quantum computers, processing information in ways that challenge everything we know about both biology and physics. Makes you wonder what other impossible computations are happening in the ocean's depths. Speaking of impossible ocean phenomena, some marine environments seem to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Picture trying to explain to someone that their swimming pool exists in 17 different realities at once. That's essentially what marine biologists face when studying certain ocean regions that seem to operate outside our three-dimensional understanding. The Mariana Trench has areas where sonar readings suggest impossible spatial configurations. Equipment lowered to 35,000 feet sometimes takes 40,000 feet of cable. The math simply doesn't work. Either our instruments are malfunctioning everywhere at once, or these underwater canyons bend space in ways that shouldn't be possible. Then there's the temperature paradox in the Bermuda Triangle region. Research vessels have recorded simultaneous readings of 32 degrees Fahrenheit and 78 degrees Fahrenheit from sensors positioned just 3 feet apart. Not different depths. Same horizontal plane, same pressure level. It's like the water exists in multiple thermal states simultaneously. Marine animals seem completely unfazed by these dimensional quirks. Whales navigate through these impossible spaces without hesitation. Deep-sea fish swim through areas where our instruments suggest they should be occupying the same physical space as solid rock formations. The really strange part? Underwater photographers occasionally capture images showing sea life that appears to exist in slightly different gravitational orientations within the same frame. Fish swimming upward, while others swim downward in identical water columns. But perhaps the ocean's most beautiful mystery involves creatures that seem to shimmer between dimensions through patterns of light. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, something extraordinary happens every single day. Marine ecosystems don't just make noise, they create symphonies. We're talking full orchestral arrangements that would make Beethoven jealous. Whales serve as the bass section, their low-frequency calls rumbling across entire ocean basins. Dolphins chirp and click like a jazz ensemble improvising complex melodies. Even tiny shrimp contribute percussion sounds that snap and crackle through the water, like nature's own drumline. But here's where it gets really weird. These aren't random sounds thrown together. Marine biologists have discovered that different species actually coordinate their vocalizations. It's like they're following sheet music written by the ocean itself. Take humpback whales. Their songs follow musical structures with verses, choruses, and even bridge sections. What's mind-blowing? Whales thousands of miles apart will sing variations of the same song, adding their own regional flair while maintaining the core melody. How do they share these compositions across such vast distances? Then there are the mysterious deep-sea concerts. Hydrophones pick up synchronized performances involving dozens of species, all playing their parts at exactly the right moments. Fish grunt bass lines, while sea mammals provide haunting melodies overhead. The ocean doesn't just contain music. It is music. But some marine creatures seem to be conducting these underwater orchestras using methods we can't even detect. Whales have basically built their own version of the internet. But instead of fiber optic cables, they're using the ocean itself as their communication highway. And honestly, their system makes our technology look like tin cans connected by string. Here's what blows my mind. A humpback whale singing off the coast of Alaska can be heard by another whale near Hawaii. That's over 2,000 miles away. In real time. No cell towers, no satellites, just pure ocean magic. The really weird part? They're not just making random noise. These whale songs follow patterns that suggest actual conversations. Scientists have recorded whales taking turns, pausing for responses, even changing their tune based on what other whales are singing back. It's like they're having conference calls across the entire Pacific. But wait, it gets stranger. Different whale populations have their own dialects. Australian humpbacks don't sing the same songs as their cousins in the Atlantic. Yet somehow, when migration routes cross, they can still communicate perfectly. How do they translate between whale languages? The most puzzling discovery came when researchers noticed whales responding to songs that hadn't even finished being sung yet. The whale receiving the message was already answering before the sound waves could physically reach them. That's not how sound works. Unless whales have figured out something about ocean communication that we're completely missing. What if their telepathic abilities extend beyond just sound waves? Deep beneath the ocean's surface, crystalline formations are acting like underwater doctors, healing marine life in ways that make our modern medicine look primitive. These aren't just pretty rocks sitting on the seafloor. They're actively diagnosing diseases, treating injuries, and maintaining the health of entire ecosystems. Marine biologists have discovered that certain crystal networks can detect illness in fish before any visible symptoms appear. How? Nobody knows. The crystals seem to emit specific frequencies that target infected cells while leaving healthy tissue completely untouched. It's like having a hospital that operates itself, with no doctors needed. Here's where things get really strange. These therapeutic crystal systems appear to communicate with each other across vast ocean distances. When one formation successfully treats a particular disease, other crystal networks thousands of miles away somehow learn the cure and start applying it immediately. The ocean has basically created its own medical internet using rocks. Some researchers think these crystals might be storing genetic information about every marine species, creating a living database of how to fix biological problems. Fish literally swim up to certain formations when they're sick, as if they know exactly where to go for treatment. But the ocean's pharmaceutical secrets run even deeper than crystalline healers. There's an entire underwater pharmacy operating on a schedule that would make Swiss clockmakers jealous. Deep in the ocean's medicine cabinet sits something that would make any pharmacist jealous. The sea doesn't just mix random chemicals and hope for the best. Nope. It operates like the world's most sophisticated automated pharmacy, releasing exactly the right healing compounds at precisely the perfect moment. Marine biologists studying coral reefs noticed something bizarre during spawning season. Right before the massive reproductive event, when billions of organisms release eggs and sperm simultaneously, the water chemistry shifts. Specific healing compounds appear exactly when they're needed to protect vulnerable new life. It's like the ocean sets multiple timers and releases medicine on schedule. But here's where your mind gets blown. These compounds don't just randomly float around waiting. They're stored in microscopic capsules that dissolve only under specific conditions. Temperature hits a certain point, boom, anti-inflammatory agents release. pH levels change slightly, out come the antibiotics. The timing is so precise, it makes Swiss watches look sloppy. Some compounds release daily, others monthly, and a few only appear during rare celestial alignments. We're talking about a pharmaceutical system that's been operating perfectly for millions of years, without a single prescription error. Even weirder, the ocean seems to anticipate problems before they happen, releasing preventive medicine days before environmental stress hits. Which brings us to something even more mind-bending about how ocean awareness operates across impossible scales. Picture 40,000 feet below the ocean surface, where something extraordinary happens. Individual marine creatures stop being individuals. They merge into something bigger, something that thinks and feels as one massive entity. Deep-sea consciousness clouds aren't just a fancy term for schools of fish. We're talking about actual shared awareness that spans multiple species across vast underwater territories. Squid, jellyfish, microscopic organisms, and creatures we haven't even discovered yet all plug into the same mental network. Here's what blows my mind about this phenomenon. A single thought ripples through millions of creatures simultaneously. When one organism detects danger, every member of the consciousness cloud knows instantly, not through chemical signals or electrical impulses, but through direct mental connection. These awareness clouds can stretch for hundreds of miles underwater. Marine biologists studying deep-sea behavior patterns noticed something weird happening during their research dives. Equipment readings showed coordinated responses from completely different species that had no apparent way to communicate with each other. The strangest part? These consciousness clouds seem to have personalities of their own. Some are cautious and defensive. Others appear curious and playful. A few demonstrate problem-solving abilities that exceed what any individual member species should be capable of. But here's where things get really mind-bending. These deep-sea awareness networks might be influencing something much bigger than we ever imagined. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, something extraordinary happens that makes absolutely no sense according to everything we know about physics. Quantum effects that should only exist in laboratory conditions are somehow thriving in seawater, creating healing fields that repair marine life